There are pots with the man's favorite houseplants on the table. He takes a sprayer to water them. The hero mentally asks to give him more time to rest because he wants to see this dream again. The policeman begins to panic and loudly begs the guy to wake up. The hero notes the girl's ears and tail with surprise, and when she turns to face him, he quickly covers his face with his hand. The girl calls him with a smile, coming closer and pointing her finger at him, asking if he is the one who saved her. Still covering his face with his hand, Lit denies his involvement, regretting that he was distracted out of habit and did not have time to run away. She starts listing facts about him being the only person here and glares at him. The hero awkwardly turns away. She slyly says that she senses a secret here and asks him if he is an imperial enemy. The guy, finally lowering his hand, nervously asks her if she knows who he is. She answers negatively and Lit breathes a sigh of relief. The girl says that she will find out now and introduces herself as Manhwa. The hero thinks nervously that he must not allow anyone to find out about him, because in that case, it could lead to the same consequences as before. He already wants to get more pollen out of his pocket, thinking that he should put her to sleep, but decides that he doesn't have time for that. He admits that he saved her life. Manhwa, wagging her tail, happily says that she knew it. Lit says he wants her to thank him for saving her life. The girl is embarrassed. He asks her to introduce him to people in need, to those who need help in business. The guy opens his eyes. He is in a wooden cart. He is sitting in a raincoat. There is a bag on the bench next to him. He nervously notes that this is gratitude, which means there is no payment for it. Manhwa squints sourly. The girl sadly says that trust is very important in this industry, so she will present it as a special offer out of gratitude. Lit is very happy to hear this, but does not understand why the girl looks so sad. The guy says that in the end he just needs a job. They go out to the market where there are many small stalls and people milling around everywhere. Near one of them stands a girl, also with ears and a tail, similar to a lion's. She calls out to customers and notices Lit and Manhwa greeting the girl. She waves back. She indignantly asks Manhwa if she has come to steal her donuts again, and then notices Lit. She asks if he is a customer. Manhwa introduces him as her benefactor, which surprises the girl greatly. The girl introduces herself as Mia and says that she is the best merchant in the Golden Road shopping district. He says it's nice to meet her and notes that he heard she had some trouble. She asks anxiously if he's talking about the debt. Manhwa interrupts, saying that he didn't mean that and that she told him that she was missing something. Mia rubs the back of her head in relief. The guy wonders in his mind if everything is okay with the girl. Mia explains that there is a serious shortage of potions in Galtland right now, and that the most powerful one sold on the market, the high-level potion, is especially scarce and unavailable. He mentally notes that it is strange that there is a shortage of potions in peacetime and asks her why. The girl replies that it is most likely due to a shortage of raw materials. At this point, Manhwa writes something down in her notebook. He realizes that he was sleeping and reflects on how he has not dreamed of the old days for a long time. A girl who is driving a cart pulled by an ox along the riverbank calls the hero and asks him to wake up. She explains that the red berries that are the raw material for potions have been destroyed by sunlight and storms. They look at the slightly injured customers, and Mia says that this is why the fighting guys from the Mercenary Guild and the Seeker Guild got into trouble. The guy looks and puts his hand in his pocket. He shows the berry and asks if it is her. The girls actively agree and Mia asks where he got it. He thinks that he has several samples with him, and if he needs to increase them, his magic will handle it. Lith asks how much a high-level potion costs. Mia replies that they are not currently available. She suggests that perhaps 2 large gold coins. The guy asks again, surprised. He remembers the elf's words that such coins are used for large transactions and that one such coin is equal to 100 gold coins. Mia notes that when potions are cheap, they cost like a silver coin or two. The guy analyzes that the price has increased 40 times. He is pleased with the information he received, realizing that this is a very big increase. Lit asks Mia what would happen if she could sell red berries regularly and they had a monopoly. The girl dreamily exclaims that this would be a victory in the economic war and she would be rich. He leans out the window and asks what's wrong. The hero's name is Lit Rickard. He is 19 years old. The freckled girl, the coachman, apologizes for waking him and asks him to look, pointing ahead. The guy runs away, shouting for them to wait a bit and that he will be right back. They look after him in surprise and do not understand what is happening. He enters a dark alley, making sure no one is around. He remembers that about 4 years ago, when the war ended, it is believed that monsters stopped appearing, and accordingly, there are no high-level quests to exterminate them anymore. While the boy is burying the berry, he thinks about how he doesn't belong to any organization and won't be able to accept quests here. He stands up and looks at the mound of earth, thinking that the elf was right about the guild being the fastest way to make money. But when Lith thinks about the guild, he is sickened by the way he was treated before. He begins to cast a spell over the berry, telling it to grow and prosper. A sprout emerges from the ground. Everything around him sparkles with magic and waves of power radiate from the place where he stands. The guy is sure that this time he is here to get real freedom. Many bushes with berries begin to grow around him. Lit thinks that he will live on his own. He looks at the already grown plants and picks the berries, rejoicing at their growth and noting that the fruits are beautiful and shiny. He muses that he will need to make some baskets, prepare some preserves, and find a wizard who can dry them properly. He returns to the market, and he and the girls hide behind a tent. The hero shows them 2 baskets of berries, and Mia exclaims that these are the very ones, and there are so many of them. Manhwa is also surprised. Lit says he can give the same amount regularly, provided the market price does not fall. The girl gets scared. The heroes get out of the carriage. In front of them is a giant fallen tree, blocking the way. Its branches are lying in the river, and its massive trunk is lying right on the road. The girl explains that she doesn't know what to do next because there is water on the right and a cliff on the left. She imagines him in her head as a bandit, and asks him in horror if he is a young master with a bad character. The hero is surprised by such a description. Lit tries to convince her, assuring her that this is a mutually beneficial business. Mia asks again if this is true. The guy sees that she is afraid, understands that there are bandits in this world too, and convinces her that he is telling the truth so that she does not worry. He knows that this all sounds suspicious even to him and is already starting to worry. Mia looks at the guy tensely and worriedly. Manhwa joins the conversation and calmly says that he is fine, calling him a good person, which surprises Lita. Convinced, Mia gives the go-ahead and asks him how much he wants for the delivery. He shows a piece of paper with the amount and says that with the deposit it is about that much, thinking that for the sake of his future, this is not negotiable. Mia doubts a little, but then gives in. She moves closer to him and confidently replies that they have agreed. She says that this is a great chance, and in order not to miss it, she must show animal qualities. The guy agrees, saying that if you do not enter the tiger's den, you will not get a tiger cub, admitting that it is not easy. Mia says she doesn't know the meaning of the proverb. Lit sighs that he was trying to come up with something understandable about the importance of risk. Mia asks his name, addressing him as a valued customer. Lit thinks the tree is very big. The girl exhales tiredly. He realizes that he hasn't introduced himself. Mia looks at him expectantly. Manhwa notes that she would also like to know. The guy thinks that they trusted him and judged him not by rumors, but by his behavior. He remembers being called different names, whether Mr. Lazy or Hero, and smiles a little sadly but warmly. He extends his hand to them and tells them his name, adding that it is a pleasure to meet them. Mia enthusiastically extends her hand in return and shows respect. They shake hands as a sign of successful negotiations and acquaintance. Mia happily shouts that she can now repay her debt. The guy hesitantly asks her if she is a good merchant. Manhwa looks at him slyly, resting her chin on her notebook. Lit returns to the lamb sales office, apologizing to the elf for disturbing him during his lunch break. The elf says that at least the hero noticed that. The guy understands the problem that many perceive the administrator as some kind of autonomous golem who can help with anything at any time and sympathizes with the man. The elf asks if he has solved his problem. He answers in the affirmative. Lit starts pulling bags of money out onto the table and says that he earned even more than he thought and that there is a big difference between what he has now and what he had. Elv repeats that no matter how many gold coins the guy has, it won't be enough, but the guy, convinced of the opposite, unties one of the bags. He shows one of the coins and says that it is mithril. The man is amazed. Lit adds that he has heard that the Empire and autonomous regions have different attitudes towards small coins, such as gold and silver. She says that they have no choice but to turn around and go around, and that because of this they will arrive 5 days late. The hero is not upset and thinks that this is not a bad idea, enjoying the unique event in the journey. The boy thinks that he didn't have enough money for the fees and registration fees, but if you add it up to what he earned, it's the right amount. He didn't expect such a high price. The elf unties all the bags and sees mithril coins everywhere. Here the man grabs one of the bags and shouts enthusiastically that these are very rare coins made of rare metal, which are exchanged very well in many countries and that even he doesn't see them often, and here are 100 of them. The guy looks around warily. He slaps his hand over the man's mouth, asking him not to scream and thinking that he doesn't want to stand out. The elf is incredibly happy to see so many coins. The guy mentally begs him not to tell him about it. The man apologizes and asks Lit who he is, that he was able to get so much money in such a short time. The guy awkwardly says that he is simply unemployed. The elf looks at him carefully and asks his name. The boy worries that he looked suspicious. The man continues to stare at him. He gives his full name with doubt. The elf apologizes, saying that it is a simple formality, and Lit breathes a sigh of relief. The man takes a quill and begins filling out paperwork, asking the boy if he has joined the guild. Lith replies negatively, to which the elf says that it is a loss. He puts the seal and tells the boy to come in the evening, because he will have finished everything else by sunset. Lith thanks him. The elf bids him farewell. Lit, with eyes sparkling with joy and a smile, holds the document in his hands and says that this hole now belongs to him. She turns to the cart and says that they have a problem, because they are carrying a package from the imperial capital, which she is supposed to deliver the day after tomorrow. The man addresses the boy again, noting that the clothing guild store will have a sale in 30 seconds. The boy doesn't understand why he's saying this. The elf calmly advises him to change his cloak in his own interests. The boy is shocked to realize that all this time he was noticed by the imperial emblem on the back of his cloak. The elf awkwardly looks away. The boy thinks it's very sweet of the man and thanks him. The elf pretends he has nothing to do with it. He stays at a hotel for the night, where he hangs and unpacks his things. On the table next to the bed is a flask with a seed and a candle burning. After a shower, he jumps onto the bed in clean clothes, saying that it was a long journey and he hasn't had a good place to stay for a long time, and there's even a shower there. He lies on the bed and thinks contentedly that they have done a lot of things today, such as harvesting, buying land, purchasing all the seeds and seedlings, and ordering an ox cart for tomorrow. He happily thinks that now he has money and opens his eyes, looking at the ceiling. The guy remembers all the people he met that day and thinks that they are all good. Lit considers that maybe he should join the guild after all, but then changes his mind, noticing the cloak lying on the floor. She gets upset and almost cries, lamenting that the fine for the delay is deducted from the fee, and also adds that there is still a quota. The hero first looks at her condition, then turns around. The guy looks at the imperial emblem and confidently decides that he will not make the same mistake again and will definitely be free this time. He remembers how at the age of 16 he saved the empire and what awaited him, namely, nepotism, pampering, jealousy, and other unpleasant things, was no different from what it was before reincarnation. He thought about how he had reincarnated in another world and had a second life, and then he told everyone that he didn't want to do that anymore. The guy decided to leave fame and become a court magician. He decided so, and easily got this job, thanks to his merits. He thought that since the people who worked there were the elite of the highest imperial power, they would treat him as a colleague and equal. A few years later, people started whispering behind his back that he got this job thanks to the hero's connections and that he was scary. Hearing this, the guy realized that everything was the same in this place. He was working the most menial job that had nothing to do with witchcraft or botanical research. One day, a colleague approached him. The man in glasses arrogantly said that since the hero was free, he had a job for him and asked him to do a favor. He was given a job in a dark place that no one else does, namely cleaning up unopened archives, although he worked quite a bit of overtime. She says that it's time to leave anyway and pets the bull. Then the girl realizes that the guy has moved away and asks him about it. He comes closer to the tree and asks them to move away because it will not be safe there. But surprisingly, analyzing the results of research left by old court magicians, which conceal a secret, turned out to be quite an interesting activity. There, the guy found a legend about the world tree, remembering that it also existed in his world. An image of a girl with two tails flashed by as the boy turned the pages, engrossed in his reading. Then something distracted him and he looked away. There was a desk there, on which stood a flask and from which a column of light emanated. As if enchanted, he came closer and extended his hand to her. He ran his hand over the glass, not taking his eyes off the soft light. The guy took the flask in his hands and raised it above his face, peering into the contents, which emitted this incomprehensible glow. He admired the silvery seed with a faint blue tint inside the vessel. Lit didn't know what kind of species it was and had never heard of it or seen anything like it. The hero is lying on a hammock, with a small light-colored cat sleeping on him. He places his hand on the tree trunk and tells it to move using an unknown force. At this moment, a crowd of people burst into the room, telling the guy to stay put. Still holding the flask in his hand, he turns to the people, not understanding anything. The guy in glasses shouts that he is accused of poisoning His Majesty's tea to the dock and is now being arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Lit realizes what has happened and puts the flask in his pocket. He recalls how at the trial everyone shouted at him that he was due the death penalty and was forever banned from entering the Empire. He understood that he had been drawn into the struggle of court careerists and was falsely accused. He realized that he had been set up, but he welcomed his exile, and at that moment he finally understood that reincarnation is not exactly freedom. It was after this that he decided that he had to create it himself. In the morning he had breakfast and tidied himself up. He put on new clothes, bought the previous day, namely boots, gloves, and a raincoat, with a clasp on which was a sign similar to an inverted letter L. The guy looked at himself in his new clothes and wondered if it really suited him, since he had left the selection to the discretion of the seller. He was met by the same girl in a cart as last time, and asked in surprise if he really was going to live in the middle of nowhere. The tree is lifted from the ground and something happens to it. She explained that the site of his future home was an isolated island on land, and he, looking out the window at the busy street, dreamily thought about this place in the middle of the desert. He noted that this is exactly what he likes about it, saying that there is both water and wasteland, and that it is far from any human habitation. The guy confidently declares that this is the best place for him and the girl resigns herself. Lit says he has no plans to return to the city, but the girl replies that she will miss him. She adds that although it will be difficult for her to get there, he should let her know if he changes his mind. Lit thanks the girl. They gradually move away from the city. They drive past the fields, and the boy thinks that his dreams before and after reincarnation are finally coming true. First of all, he wants to grow as many plants as possible, namely beautiful flowers, vegetables, and fruits, as well as unusual flowers. A day passes, night falls on the road. The guy thinks that he wants to wake up in the morning and go to bed in the evening, eat what he himself has grown and obtained. He wants to live peacefully and happily, to his own delight. They get there. The girl waves goodbye to him, and he waves back. He puts his suitcase down next to him. Lit looks around and realizes that he cannot see the city, and that, as far as the eye can see, his own world and his own life stretch out. There is a vast desert spread out before him, but he opens his arms and sees freedom right before his eyes. New shoots and branches begin to appear around and from the tree. The hero thinks that his past life ended on the train. He probably died of exhaustion and was reborn in this world, in harmony. Towards the rising sun he exclaims that this is the best of all worlds. Lit takes out a flask with a seed and mentally wonders what kind of flower will grow from it. He sits down on the ground and says that he is looking forward to it, thinking that this time he will enjoy a measured life. About a week ago, in the capital, Mia is delighted that they have a monopoly on powerful potions. She offers Manhwa to try some of their delicious food, but Manhwa declines, writing something down in her notebook. Mia asks if she has any plans, to which Manhwa replies that she is simply too busy and that they have not heard from each other in a long time. She talks about a great mage from the imperial capital and is about to start working on an article. Mia praises her work and says that she will go with her. Manhwa says that she is the best reporter of the Information Guild, Wings of a Feather, and is going after a new star, namely Lit. Meanwhile, Lit spends the night in a tent in the middle of the desert, from which the morning dew rolls down. The guy is tossing and turning on the couch. A flask with semen is standing on a suitcase nearby and slightly illuminating the room. He can't understand why it is so cold. Right above him sits a pixel girl with a serious face, looking straight at him. He turned to 16 years old. Staring at him, she demands that he stand up. The boy opens his eyes and wishes the girl good morning, wondering if her gaze is the cause of the cold. He calls the girl Navi. She is an artificial spirit. He tries to ask her to let him sleep a little longer, but Navi yells at him to get up. Lit awkwardly tells the girl that they haven't seen each other for a long time and asks how she is. She responds by realizing that he is trying to hide everything behind a smile. Navi explains that due to a long absence of activation requests, she has gone into emergency mode and asks where they are. The boy, sitting down on the couch, tells them that they are on land that he bought and that it is 10 days' journey from Galtland. The girl realizes that this is a city located on the southern continent and asks the guy what happened, addressing him as a master. Lit doesn't know what to say. The guy thinks that artificial spirits are lost in ancient magic and are called semi-autonomous magical lifeforms by the Empire, but Navi is completely autonomous and moves on its own. She moves closer to him and asks him harshly if his brain has rotted from sleeping for so long. The guy notes that Nabi is not only independent but also speaks very loudly. She looks at him straight in the eye and demands an answer from him. She repeats her question about what happened to him. The guy waves her off, saying that it's nothing serious and it's just a small change of scenery and moving. At this age, he became a hero. The tree turns into a knot of multiple branches. The girl looks at this, raising her hands in shock. She doesn't respond to this, and then humbly says that she is a puppet created by the master, an artificial spirit navigator, and that she obeys his orders. The guy objects to her words, saying that she is not a puppet because she has her own mind. She replies that this does not change anything, and even she is autonomous and has a will, she is still a tool. Nabi says that the owner gave her a pseudo-personality and she is still a thing. The guy asks the girl not to call herself a thing. She turns to him and says that she understands that he wants to live independently and not turn to people or magic for help. Nabi adds that despite all this, tools are lonely when not in use. The boy ponders her words. She then skeptically notes that she at least knows why he is in such a small tent. Lit is indignant that it was very difficult for him. The guy listens to her words and assures her that if he needs anything, he will count on her. Nabi bows his head. She is satisfied with what she has heard and says she will go into sleep mode. Lit bids her good night, still thinking about the word tools he said to her. He gets dressed and goes outside, noting that it is very cold. The guy thinks that they urgently need to find a place to live. The guy decides that he first needs to find a watering hole and is surprised that the terrain in these parts is rugged. A multitude of huge branches, intertwined with each other and wrapped around the tree, lifted above the ground. He takes out his compass and notices that the mountains to the east are densely forested, so there might be a spring there. He's going there. He thinks that they are starting to look for a house and that they need to continue walking towards the mountains. Lit muses that they could use plant magic to improve the soil, but thinks that cheating is too easy since he wants to live like a real adventurer and he only has a limited amount of seeds for magic. The guy convinces himself that he will live on his own energy as long as possible and begins to walk in the direction of the mountain, taking with him a suitcase and a stick for support, noting that he hasn't walked for a long time. He is out of breath, almost lying on a stick, realizing that it is hard for him. The guy looks at the eastern mountains, which are right in front of them, and thinks about how to get to them. He convinces himself that he is not using magic and that he is on his own, and he slowly moves forward, but after a couple of steps the stick falls to the ground. The boy takes advantage of his rapid growth by creating a cart and rails for it to roll on. In his defense, the hero thinks that even in the past world, being a hardcore gamer, he would not have wasted time moving around the map. He rolls along the rails in a cart with the wind and happily thinks that this is very good. Lit quickly rolls down and compares the descent to a roller coaster. He gets the idea that they could build a train out of it. The whole structure of branches goes into the river with a huge splash. Waves rise around. He muses that a train in another world sounds exciting. The hero squints contentedly and thinks that he has enough speed, so he pulls the wooden stopcock down to slow down. To his horror, the lever breaks and the cart continues to rush along the rails at the same speed. The guy thinks it's bad because the descent is going downhill and he's accelerating. Then he smells smoke and realizes the tire is smoking. At that moment, something else catches his attention. At the end of the path, where the rails have not yet been made, they run into a large stone, and the hero realizes that he could run into it now. He panics, thinking that if he doesn't stop, he'll crash while still going full speed. He's already cursing in his head and bracing himself for the impact. Lit remembers Navi and calls to her. She says that mapping has begun. Then, after analyzing, she says that in 220 meters to the north-northwest, there is a possibility of descent. The girl also reports that the estimated time of arrival at the big rock is 4 seconds, after which the guy interrupts her. The cart continues to rush. He realizes that there is no time to build rails and creates a new spell, throwing new seeds and telling them to grow faster. The cart on the rails is thrown upward and breaks into pieces, while the guy himself flies over a huge rock. The hero stands with the girl under a large leaf, hiding from the drops, and says that the problem is solved. She is amazed by what she sees. He falls softly onto a large meadow of flowers and, laughing, says that it was fun. Navi appears next to him and notes that he made the flower pillows, casually asking if he's alive. Lit happily says that she's just in time. The guy thanks her for saving their lives. The girl smiles a little, but sincerely. She says that there is no need to thank her, because she is a tool, but Lit just waves it off, saying that she is at it again. He remembers the first voice he heard was Navi's. She asked him how he was doing and welcomed him to Harmony, like the system message in the games. The guy created a body for this voice using ancient magic that he found in the ruins, and the result was this, an artificial spirit. He literally transformed the instrument into a living entity. At the same time, the guy really wanted her to become his friend. He confidently says that he will tell her why he was there. They talk until late at night. Navi looks at him sadly and asks why he didn't tell her about it earlier. The guy explains that when they find out he's an outcast, the girl will curse them for 3 months. Navi grimly says that 12 months of abuse will be enough. Lit thinks, that's scary. He continues to explain. She screams with delight, asking what kind of magic it is and guessing that it is telekinesis or wind magic. The guy adds that he didn't want her to hear all that nonsense. The girl is convinced that he has put everything behind him and asks heartfeltly if he missed her. Lit looks at her and smiles humbly. Then he looks up at the sky and says that he is finally free. He happily looks at the sky full of shining stars and thinks about complete freedom. Navi looks at the guy with sadness. She says she has a rough idea of what's going on and goes into sleep mode. Lit bids her good night. The guy gets up and thinks that he knows Navi is angry and sorry for him, that he didn't call her before he built a house or something so that this wouldn't happen. He looks thoughtfully into the distance, then raises his hands, confidently declaring that he will sleep in the tent tonight and make it better than before. Navi says that she has something to tell him. She claims 93% of his property was smashed to pieces. Lit is shocked by her words and realizes that the tent is destroyed. He asks her to find them a place to live, but she no longer answers. Some girl is watching them from behind a rock. The hero sheepishly says that it is a commercial secret and asks not to tell anyone. She imploringly asks if she can brag. The guy categorically refuses. Lit lists all the things that were broken in the fall, sitting next to the wreckage, realizing that there is almost nothing left except a blanket and some seeds. He pulls his knees up to himself and says sadly that it is harder than he thought. He takes the staff, saying that nothing can be done, and gets up with the thought that for now he needs to survive. The boy waves his staff, throws seeds, and casts a tall growth spell. Vines appear from the ground in front of him. They intertwine, wrap around each other and grow higher, and somewhere apple fruits appear. Lantern-like peaks are also created, with a glowing center. Lit closes his eyes, concentrating. He opens his eyes and confidently looks at the already created fence and the yard with lighting. Next, he looks at a medium-sized log house on small piles, deciding that this is the place where he will live. In the yard, he also creates a tap made of twigs and sticking out of the ground. Approaching it, he thinks that the key to life is regular water, but only a couple of drops come out of the tap. He sits down and thinks that he will not be able to get to the groundwater because of the dryness. He muses that he had gone so far that he could not find the river because there was something like a trail. The guy assumes that it once flowed here. He notes, opening the map, that even with the help of a GPS, the wasteland is still a big wasteland. Lit sadly wonders about Tamiya. Is it true that the land he bought is completely without water? He strokes the cat and thinks about a peaceful life. A drop of water slowly flows down the leaf. Lit suggests that they leave quickly. The girl smiles brightly and agrees, thanking him. The hero remembers their conversation with the elf and that there was a flat area that was set aside for construction, a fair amount of wasteland and a source of water. The guy definitely demanded such a plot of land, so he wonders if there was a mistake. He looks at the small amount in the cup and thinks that at least there is something here, and although it will take time to accumulate, it will be enough to grow usable seeds. The guy remembers the so-called mysterious X seed and is glad that it is okay. Since he took it from the archives before the trial, Lit knows that it is very valuable. The hero assumes that it is a tree seed, so he wants to make a sapling first. He makes a small pot, fills it with soil, excitedly takes out a seed and plants it. The boy raises the pot to the sky and is already impatiently waiting to see what will eventually grow out of it. He thinks about how he needs to moisten the surface today, because he will water it in the morning. Then the hero yawns. He climbs the steps into the house and decides to eat the apples he prepared, but after biting into them, he winces from the acidity. In the morning, the boy goes out and looks at the beds, peering at the rock nearby. He assumes that these are people, although he doubts it, and then sees someone's hand clinging to the rock. He panics and already thinks that these are hallucinations, but quickly comes to his senses. The hero gathers his strength, approaches the rock. Before doing so, he looks around furtively and then looks behind it. There sits a girl. Her hands are all covered in wounds and she holds and hugs a pot of plant in them. There are tears in her eyes. The guy is amazed by his find. He notes that the girl's tiara is not a decoration, but is made from a real flower. They drive on, passing mountains, fields, and farms. He wakes Navi and asks her to give him an assessment. She appears and says the reboot is complete. When the evaluation is complete, Navi reveals that the girl is 14 years old in human equivalent, that the various sizes are kept secret from the evaluation system, and that the girl is of the flower people race. The boy is delighted with the information he received, shouting that he never thought he would meet the flower people. The girl is scared, and Nabi reproachfully notes that her anxiety level is elevated and says that this is too much. The hero is perplexed. The boy remembers reading and hearing about the flower people, a race of people living in nature and able to care for plants, but he didn't think that they really existed. The guy tries to calm the swarm of questions in his head, like, what is the girl's name? Are there more representatives of this race, and why did she dare to plant crops in his fields? At first, he tries to relax the girl a little, saying that everything is fine and asking if she has any problems. Nabi tells the boy that, according to popular belief, the flower people do not understand the language of other people. The girl looks at him tensely. He notes the plant in her hand. Lit recognizes them as spring berries, but sick ones, and understands that she planted them in the field. He sits down at her level and tries to find out her name, first saying his own. The girl still asks again with some hesitation and looks at the hero. Navi only wants to say something else, but the girl quietly says her name, Frau. The flower on her tiara blooms. The boy looks out the window, smiling and thinking that it was the plant magic of growth acceleration and life restoration. He simply repeated them on the big tree, moving them in a different direction. The whole tiara on her head is in bloom, and she is already repeating her name more openly and confidently. The guy says it's nice to meet you and tells you he's a plant mage. Lit realizes Frau can understand simple words. Navi asks him if he will help her with Frau. The guy replies that she does not pose a big threat to their ambitions. Frau looks sadly at the petals of the plant in her hands, and the hero tells her not to worry because he can fix it and assures her that everything will be fine with him. The girl looks back at him in surprise. He plants the seedling in his garden bed and ties it to a peg. He and Frau sit next to the plant, and the boy says that it lacks water and iron, so he first sprinkles iron powder on it and then waters the sprout. He casts a healing spell and bewitches them to be healthy. The leaves become better, brighter, and juicier. The girl looks at what is happening in surprise, sighing. The guy thinks that he is just supporting the healing powers of the plant itself. He tells the girl not to worry but stops mid-sentence, looking at her in amazement. The flower on her tiara opens to its full potential and covers almost her entire head like a headdress. A guy with shining eyes looks at a magnificent plant. He assumes that the flower opens when she is happy and thinks that it is great and he has never seen a flower like it. Lit thinks that there are very few plant mages and that he is the only one of such a mage out of all the wizards he knows, so he thinks it is better for him not to stand out. Frau awkwardly thanks the guy in parts. Lit looks at her in shock. The girl breaks into a bright smile and, this time clearly, thanks him with all her heart. The boy thinks it's very cute. Navi appears asking if they're in trouble. Lit denies it, saying that the plants aren't a threat. The girl humbly agrees. Frau throws herself on his chest, continuing to thank him incessantly. He looks at the girl sympathetically. The boy sadly suggests that Frau was in a difficult situation, so she took such a risk that she decided to plant berries in his field, looking for some nutritious soil. He imagines her in the night, trying to save the plant on this dry land all these years. Nabi tells him that Frau's love for him only grows. The boy sends her to bed. She notes that he should not forget his own ambitions. He mentally confirms that his ambition is to live alone, and that therefore there is no need to interfere too much. He is just a stranger. The girl clings to his clothes with her hands, and the guy notices that she is shaking. The guy talks about how the springberry is a peach berry that tastes like raspberries and is used to make potions but does not have a tonic effect, turning into sour juice. But he notes that this is only for people. He remembers that he was reborn in this world, in harmony, and as promised, he became a masked hero, and the 100-year war with the demons came to an end. Lit carefully places his hands on her back, hugging her and thinking that this berry heals. He assumes that Frau wants to help her people. At this, the girl's eyes widen. Deep in the eastern mountains lies a hidden village of flower people. They live in small tree houses. All the residents are looking at something with doubt and concern on their faces. Frau brought him to her village. They are sitting in one of the houses, and Lit asks if they regularly drink the healing water from spring berries. Frau does not understand him. The boy rephrases his sentence so that she can understand it better. She answers in the affirmative. Lit thinks that the springberry infusion is what they call a potion. He reflects on the fact that since the year before last, the spring berries have begun to yield a poor harvest and die before the first seedlings are planted. He asks if they have all died. Frau answers in the affirmative. Because of this, the residents are getting worse. He understands that spring berries are no longer used to make healing infusions, and the flower people who cannot live without them are quickly weakening, starting with the elderly and children. The boy comes to the conclusion that everyone can die. The girl confirms this with tears in her eyes. The hero looks at the trembling Frau and realizes that she, being the daughter of the village elder, was desperately running around to save her. Lith frowns. He defeated the demons with his plant magic, and peace returned to harmony, thus saving it. He realizes that the situation is even worse than he imagined. Lit speculates that the berry is a medicinal plant and suggests that its consumption may help curb diseases found in the area. The guy reasons that, as far as he has heard, it never rains here, but the mountains are wet, so perhaps there is groundwater there, but the people do not have the means to pump it out. In addition, the hero notes that the seedlings lack iron and fresh water and comes to the conclusion that the main problem is the lack of water. He gets up from the table and says that he will plant spring berries in his field, because he has groundwater. Frau looks at the hero in amazement. He notes that the land has already been plowed. Nabi interrupts him, asking if he wants to help this settlement. The boy agrees. The girl objects and warns that even his land may become infertile due to planting, and without water life is difficult even for him. She asks if this will not distract him from his aspirations and if it is not better for him to live alone and carefree. The girl builds up tension, reminding him of his past lives, how hard he tried, and noting that he wants to make the same mistake. The guy smiles and tells her not to worry, and that he will take care of himself. Nabi disappears. He sighs and reasons that he will make the underground water pipes bigger and more extensive, and increase the amount of water that can be pumped up, and then if he adds a little iron he will be able to cope with his growth simulator. But his personal world has not changed at all, and remains the same as it was before reincarnation. He remembers standing in the court in shackles and people pointing fingers at him. The guy assures that the plants will grow beautifully, to which the girl, not believing her ears, asks again. Lit mentally notes that even if they use magic, they will not have enough seeds, and they will need people for large-scale watering and healing, and this is very troublesome. The girl runs out of the house and starts asking all the villagers for help, and after some time, the guy is already amazed at what he sees. All the residents came with confidence on their faces and ready to help. He is surprised to think that he is an outsider and of a different race, but they still believed in him and united, so he will not let them down and assures them that he will definitely put things in order. Already in his yard, the guy thinks about the fact that spring berries have a language of flowers. He waves his staff, thinking of growth, and the shoots shoot up. The flower people get water for irrigation by passing buckets to each other. They water the beds one after the other, each one their own, and the hero thinks about sowing. The guy mentally adds another condition. Already in the evening he turns to Frau, saying that they can go to bed, but she stubbornly remains in the beds. Lit looks at her condescendingly. It celebrates the nobility that overcomes dishonor, as they continue to fight for their land even though it is empty. 3 years have passed since this event, and now they are on a 10-day cattle drive from the capital. The boy begins his rapid growth spell and the girl looks at the field with tension. Everything that they planted with such difficulty rises and blooms, and the whole people rejoice, jumping for joy. Frau, with tears in her eyes, approaches the grown fruits, and Lit smiles happily. They make a big fire. They also set a huge table with different bowls filled with food, put a crown on the guy and thank him constantly. He doesn't have time to make excuses, trying to say that he can't eat everything and wondering where this crown on his head came from. Lit also asks not to send their daughters to live with him because it looks dubious. All this time, the villagers continue to thank him endlessly. The guy looks at all this and grabs his head, not understanding how this happened. He thinks about how they worked for 3 days and 3 nights to revive the berries and then make a decoction from them and distribute it to the sick. Lit notes that thanks to their efforts, the patients seem to be recovering and says wearily that after 3 nights, everything is finally okay. After a while, he and Frau are sitting on a log. The girl clings closely to him. Lit closes his eyes and thinks he looks like a relaxed aristocrat from the high-end period. He thinks an ox cart would be better, but he likes this leisurely pace. He mentally asks why she is so close to him, and asks her not to get attached to him. She pouts in displeasure, and the guy thinks it looks very cute. Here Navi intervenes and makes a remark about relationships on such a foundation. The guy asks what she means, and she skeptically says that he is now the savior of an entire race, to which Lit tells her to shut up. A little later, Nabi asks the hero why he helped these people. He looks thoughtfully at the partygoers and replies that he is simply interested in their company because they also value nature as he does. The girl does not fully believe his answer, but accepts it. Here, Frau sees a figure by the fire and stands up. The others also pay attention to her. She starts crying and runs towards her as fast as she can. She throws herself at the girl, hugging her tightly. The girl also barely holds back her tears, saying something to Frau, and she sobs and answers her. The freckled girl asks him what he does for a living and assumes that he is an elite magician. Navi says that this girl is very beautiful. The guy notes that she has also recovered from her illness. Then, after thinking about it, he realizes something. He says that she is the head of this tribe, Frau's mother. Navi notes that they definitely look like the girl and looks at the boy. Tears fall from Lit's eyes, and he says he is glad he could help them. The girl looks at him thoughtfully. She remembers that at first she was just a voice, meant for him, and one that only he would recognize. She did the analysis for him. One day, Lit spoke with a voice about abstract topics, and she hesitated a little before answering. The boy was happy to hear the voice answer him, and he began asking various questions. He and the voice began a casual conversation. In the future, she was with him and supported him both in easier everyday moments and in difficult, life-threatening moments. One day, he asked her if she was bored because she didn't have a body. She said he was talking to her, so it was a small thing. Lit apologized to her, remembering how he created her body. He thought that this magic would help make her autonomous. Sitting in a dark office, under the light of a computer, he wakes up and realizes that it was a dream. Exhaling tiredly, the guy thinks that he dreamed of such a life. Lit calmly replies that he is currently unemployed. She asks him in surprise if he quit his job and headed to the village. The guy said bitterly that he didn't want to use her as a tool. She looks at him tenderly. Nabi tells him that he is kind as always, smiling softly. Lit denies this, saying that he is, at best, a good man. She notes that it's not quite the right word. He asks what she's talking about. The girl admits that she was wrong when she did not agree with him on the issue of helping the people and congratulates the guy. She notes that she has never seen so many people benefit from his actions. He looks at the rejoicing residents. Some of them are drinking, some are sitting quietly, and some are enjoying their newfound time with their loved ones. The boy looks at the reunited mother and daughter and feels his heart warm. He says that Navi is right. Be that as it may, the girl notes that he tends to take on too much responsibility and asks to use her services, promising to definitely help. She gently wishes him to lead his own life, which will be in his spirit. He explains that he quit, or rather, that he was fired and left everything. She asks again. Lit is surprised to think that he saw a smile on Navi's usually impassive face. The guy says with a chuckle that the girl is very frank today. She shyly hides her gaze. She looks up at him, her cheeks flushing. The hero continues to tease her, saying that Navi can be shy too. She turns to him reproachfully. He laughs and apologizes, thanking her. The guy reflects on how he is going to enjoy life here alone and without communicating with others. He looks at Frau, who waves at him, and it occurs to him that the people he has met since arriving in Galtland are different from those he has interacted with before. The boy reaches out his hand towards the girl. Frau takes him by the hand and pulls him towards them. The boy gives in, standing up. Lit thinks the drunken parties were torture in his old life. He didn't like the atmosphere at all and was uncomfortable with people. But now, dancing with Fry around the fire, he smiles brightly. The guy mentally notes that he feels pretty good. Fry, standing next to his mother, asks the boy to say his name. At first he blurts it out without thinking, but then he realizes that it was ugly and repeats it in full. He looks at the bottle in his hands and says that he has ambitions that he wants to realize, and he thinks that now he is not a hero, not a saint, and not a corporate citizen and is finally free. Fry addresses him by name and tries to say in a broken voice that they would like to work in his fields. He awkwardly asks what she means. Then it dawns on him. The guy asks again if this is true. At this time, an article is published in Galtland about an experienced magician from the imperial capital who arrived on the southern continent. Manhwa hands them out on the street, advertising them as an extra edition. Mia asks her if it's about Lit. The girl reproachfully yells at Mia not to ruin the story. Manhwa exclaims that this story is her monopoly and she will earn from it in small doses. The article falls under the feet of a blonde girl with a long ponytail. She reads about a plant manipulator and a magician. She recognizes Lit in the description with shining eyes and says that she has finally found him. The girl clutches the newspaper from an excess of feelings and selflessly says that she, Adele, will definitely return him to the capital. This time, he is determined to live his own life. The girl tells him that they are almost there. A pot with an unknown seed stands by an open window in the house. Lit thinks about leaving everything and starting a new life. Working hard, he reflects on leaving everything and coming to this remote wasteland. The guy looks into the distance and thinks that he did this to enjoy a measured life. Then he turns his attention to the beds and is surprised that now all the flower people are working in his fields, which he did not expect at all. Navi notes that it was because he didn't say no to them when they asked. The boy thinks doomedly that when he saw their determination, he couldn't say no. He analyzes their work and finds that they have harvested more than they expected, including 50 baskets of spring berries for his business and 50 baskets of the same berries for medicinal medicines. He watches the flower folk work and notes that they are very careful with their plants and take the initiative to tend the fields. At this point, Fry waves at him. He waves back at her contentedly. Navi looks at this skeptically. She says gloomily that he is lazy and will pay for it someday. Lit does not understand that this has happened to her. The girl turns to him again. She reports that a stranger has entered their territory. A huge clawed paw appears on the dry ground. The guy waves to the new arrivals and says that everything is fine and that he was informed. Nabi asks if he knows these people. The flower people also pay attention to the guests. She happily says that they will arrive at the only and largest city under the jurisdiction of the guild union. Lit replies that they helped him a little. Mia and Manma wave back enthusiastically as they sit in a carriage on a giant sand blizzard. Mia marvels at the amount of red berries, noting that they are everywhere. Lit says he owes it all to the flower people. The residents look at the new guests with doubt. Mama takes note of the mention of the flower people, writing it down in her notebook. Mia thinks she didn't know about it, and since they've arrived, she decides to approach Lit. She says that she would like to ask him to make another exclusive secret contract with their guild, just between them. The guy ponders this, finding the positives in the fact that he doesn't have to think about where to sell his wares, and they can keep his location a secret. He wanted to offer the contract himself, but he's glad Mia did it first. He feels like he can do better, and the guy says he has other things he'd like to sell, but he still agrees to continue working with her. Before he can give any details, Mia already agrees to the proposal. She says that her old intuition tells her that this is the right decision. Mama skeptically notes that Mia's willingness to make cheap jokes is stronger than ever. Lit amiably says he'll get the document now, but Manma interrupts, advising him to do it later. He leans out the window to look. The wind ruffles his hair. The girl adds that there are more than 100 guilds in the city and no ties to countries or peoples. She hopes that here he will find what he is looking for. The girl says that now it's her turn to do her job. The guy is surprised because he thought they were from the same guild, but Mia convinces him otherwise, and Manma apologizes for not introducing herself for so long. She introduces herself as the best reporter of the Information Guild, Wings of the Feather. The guy looks at the newspaper that was thrust at him in amazement. The girl notes contentedly that she reported well on the feat he had performed, so he could thank her. Lit reads the line about the mage from the imperial capital. Manma adds that she deliberately made herself into a heroine who was attacked. The girl comes up to him and threateningly says that he doesn't want the situation to get worse. Mia adds that Wings of a Feather is a major player, and that Lit would be known throughout the city, if not the entire southern continent. This thought terrifies him to the point of horror, because then all their ambitions will end. He asks Nabi for help. The girl refuses, reproachfully saying that she was deactivated for that time and does not know what happened there. Lit cannot help but admit it. Manhwa knocks the guy down, jumping on him. She says conspiratorially that he can tell them anything. Her hair tickles his face, and he realizes that it feels like irresistible cat fur. It's hard for him to resist the softness of the fur as the girl presses down on him from above. She says that this city is a hope for many, and the hero asks himself if he can succeed. Manhwa slyly asks first of all who Lit is. He exhales heavily. At this moment, Fry approaches them, interrupting the conversation. She asks if they are his friends. Everyone turns to look at her, and Mia notices that they are more like business partners. The girl asks again about the word partners. Fry joyfully spreads his arms in a welcoming gesture and says that the boys' friends are their friends too. The villagers are already carrying a barrel of drink in a burst of hospitality. The girls respond in unison that they are friends who love to eat, already drooling over the contents of the barrel. They celebrate that this is matatabi wine. The people around them celebrate too. Lit marvels that the flower people can do something like that. Fry replies that it's what cats love. The guy muses that it's technically similar to matatabi wine in its effects. He notes that this recipe has been in the Frau family for generations. The hero admires how many interesting recipes they have and breathes a sigh of relief. Lit thanks Frau, glad that this peculiar maneuver gave him time to calm down and think. He says he is going to meet Manhwa. Frau excitedly asks him if they are going to have fun. They drive onto a bridge and multi-story buildings rise up in front of them. The girl introduces him to the land of the free, the city of Galtland. He refuses and says that he has a serious conversation and an important business meeting ahead of him. To gain courage, he takes a sip from his mug. The guy sits with Mia and Manhwa. They say it's delicious and that Lit is a good conversationalist. The guy says that the two of them bothered to come, so it was fun, and asks them how they liked the drink. Manhwa says it's very tasty. The hero is happy to hear this and encourages them to drink more in that case. They say he's very considerate. A little later, the girls are already tipsy. Lit looks at them and chuckles, noting that he didn't think his entertainment skills would be useful in this life. Manhwa asks him if he knows who made this drink. He says that the flower people did this and adds that their processing technologies are truly amazing and that the wine and juice from the springberries are no less wonderful. Manhwa can't believe something like that happened here, and Mia agrees and says she'll have another drink. The guy decides that now is the time to act. He brings up the interview earlier and a tipsy Manhwa falls towards him, saying she needs to witness everything and urging him to hurry. He explains that he can't provide information about himself because he doesn't want anyone to know he's here. Instead, the guy offers better material. Manhwa looks at him doubtfully. Lit throws out ideas about a famous sake brewed in an uncharted region, a mysterious flower tribe, and a hidden treasure. Manhwa admits she was surprised by the existence of these people. The hero slams the mug of drink down on the table, drinking half of it. She says that it's too simple, but the news about a mysterious wizard saving a race of fading flowers is much more interesting. The guy is worried that despite the fact that the girl is drunk, she remains a professional, but he cannot give up his ambitions. Lit says that Mia should sell this drink and the harvest in the city. Manhwa asks if he is talking about the contract. He points to the table and says that everything here is very tasty, and with their reputation, everything will sell even better. Manhwa agrees and asks about the drink. The guy says that it depends on who makes it, because it is human nature to want to know everything. Manhwa understands that the story he wants to spread is to sell more. The guy also wants it to be diluted so that they can tell it little by little. The girl says that it is just a strange rumor with no truth or value. The guy says that may be true for the average reporter, but she has the enthusiasm and courage to not be afraid of bandits, and the tenacity to pursue a story in such a remote area. Manhwa's eyes gleam. She says she must be able to write a realistic story. Lit notes that their article has generated buzz because of its connection to Mia's products and people actually like it. He says customers drink drinks bought from Mia's shop and eagerly await the next article. The hero shares that he would like there to be a village where he could stop, surrounded by delicious drinks and food, and, absolutely happy, dance in front of a large fire. He foams at the mouth as he thinks about how delicious it is. He says enthusiastically that he wants to live happily, to create, as people say, a utopia, a real paradise. Manhwa excitedly replies that the overall picture may be left unsaid and it can be turned into a legend. The guy feels that she understands him. Lit says she got it right. If the story becomes a legend, their brand will only grow. Lit extends his hand to her, urging her to accept the offer, saying that it is to her advantage. He adds that he wants an exclusive contract with them. Manhwa notes that it is the same as Mia's. The guy says he wants the girl to live the life of her dreams, but also that no one should find out about him. Manhwa admits that if things go well, she will have a lot of money, but she hesitates, starting to say something about such articles. Mia interrupts her by jumping on Manhwa, saying that she is in a good mood and offering to help the guy. Lit thinks that he should grab this chance. He sees that she has almost given in and takes her hands, with all the sincerity he has, begging her to agree. The girl purses her lips and, taking out a pen, says that she can't do anything about it. She exclaims that she is ready to sign an exclusive contract with Lit and that they can rely on her, a first-class reporter, Manhwa the Great. They hug the embarrassed guy from both sides and say that this is a secret agreement between the three of them. He looks at the screen of his charging phone, which has his cat as the wallpaper, and says that 10 minutes have passed. He goes back to work and clicks the mouse. He says happily that it is even better because in the imperial capital where he lived until now, beer was at room temperature. In the imperial city, alcohol was forbidden until the age of 20, and he thinks that the other world is also surprisingly strict. Manhwa says it's nice to meet you and Lit thanks her. They exclaim that they need to get out of poverty and get rich. Someone points out that this is still a money grab, but they ignore it and bang their mugs again to celebrate the successful contract. Navi thinks that this is where they should have started. The guy feels that he can somehow protect himself and the peace of this place, and also that he has made some very good friends. A month later, they come to him again and Mia runs to meet him, shouting that something amazing has happened. Mia happily says that their product is a big hit in the city. Manhwa admits that she is tired of asking customers if they have any additional information, but the guy notes that, apparently, the legend is gaining momentum and people are interested in it. The girls both exclaim that after joining forces with Lit, bags of money were waiting for them. The guy looks at them softly. He is glad that his expectations about them have been confirmed and that they are steadily increasing their wealth. He is also relieved that they are keeping information about him a secret, as promised. Lit happily thinks that the first stage has been completed because he no longer has any problems with financing and has reserves for management. Navi congratulates him, noting that it would be nice to rest. The guy actively agrees. He tastes the food they brought him, some dried meat, pickles, and cheese, and thinks it's the same food. Lit mentally notes that the food in this world isn't very good because it's either salty or tasteless. He tells everyone, including the flower people in the beds, that it's time to celebrate. The guy suggests having a barbecue. He sets out the grill. Manhwa says that it should be with the alcohol. Mia agrees. The white-haired girl notes that only in order of turn and Mia starts chasing her around the territory. Frau only smiles at this. Lit, licking his lips, looks at a large piece of meat. He thinks the meat was bought directly from the butcher. He also asked one of the mages to keep it cool and now it is still fresh. They have a luxury set ready, bought from Mia, special salt and special fireproof skewers. He cuts the meat, puts it on skewers, salts it, and puts it on the fire. He reflects on how the food here cannot be compared to modern Japan, where people eat a lot, and that this is an alternative world of harmony. He remembers that harmony is the world he was reborn into 20 years ago. It is the largest of the world's 4 land masses, an hourglass-shaped continent with a large gap between north and south. He thinks that the Romance Empire rules in the north of the continent, and the Guild Union is an autonomous region that governs the southern continent. He reflects that the place where he is, the city of Gotland, is the only city on the southern continent under the jurisdiction of the Guild Union. It is also the largest city in the south. He looks out the window of the tavern and thinks that the cityscape is not at all like the imperial city, because the buildings are beautiful, probably because there was no war there. He looks at the flowering plants and says that they are well taken care of. The girl behind the counter asks the guy if he liked the snacks. He evades the question by saying that the beer tastes great. She happily accepts this. She looks at him and says he's different from the others. The girl asks if he's from the Empire. The guy nervously asks if he really looks like an Imperial. Then he goes to the drinks machine and gets himself an energy drink. She says he is young and handsome. Then she looks at his coat and adds that it is also very stylish. She turns her attention to the other tables, where various kinds of humans and beastmen are sitting, and notes that there are no people like him here. The hostess asks how someone from the Reich ended up here and assumes that he is on vacation. He begins to answer. Lit says with confidence that it's all about ambition. The girl laughs and says that it's youth. She asks his name again and leaves because she is called to another table. The guy continues drinking his beer and thinks that he shouldn't have told her his real name, but notes that she doesn't know who he is, even though she realized that he's from the Empire. The hero reflects that he has interviewed several people since he arrived here, and they all reacted the same and understood that he was from the Imperial people, but no one recognized him by name, so most likely they have not heard of him on the southern continent. He happily thinks that if no information about him has been received, it means that no one there knows that he is a hero. Lit muses that he came there to live alone, and so he will buy a piece of wasteland in the wilderness where he can study the plants and magic he loves. And having done this, he will fill the vacant lot with his favorite plants. He imagines himself lying on the grass and thinks that this is how he will live. These are his ambitions. A guy is riding a train. A machine voice announces that this is the last train. The hero thinks that this is the third night in 3 days and he will finally be home. He thinks about his plants and that he will need to take care of them first. Lit sits and thinks that his idea can come true there, because, after all, he is just a young man. He drains his glass, thinking that he'll have to go out and buy some land and that he'll play hard. Then he puts his hand in his coat pocket. He takes out the flask with the seed and looks at it with inspiration, thinking that this time he will achieve his goal and gain real freedom. He goes to a large building, namely the Bureau of Land Management, where he is immediately refused the sale of land. A middle-aged elf with glasses sadly apologizes and says that it is impossible. The hero looks at him tensely. In front of them on the table is a bag of money. The elf explains that he wants to buy a hole in the middle of nowhere, but it's not that cheap, even though it's a wasteland. Lith is surprised by his words. The man says that the price is calculated in large gold coins that are only used for large transactions, such as buying land, which is why the hero does not know about them. He notes that one such coin is worth 100 gold coins. The hero analyzes that he will have to pay 10,000 gold coins for this plot. The elf adds that even if this bag is full of gold coins, it will not be enough. Lit gets upset and thinks that even though he has saved a lot since becoming a hero, it is still not enough. The elf looks at him. He asks the boy if he is a member of the guild. Lith refuses. The man says that this is unfortunate. The machine voice adds that they are almost at the end of the line. A policeman approaches the hero and calls him. The guy continues to think about his flowers and how he needs to take good care of them. He explains that if the hero were in a guild, he might be able to get a loan or something similar, but notes that there are certain duties that must be fulfilled. The elf advises him to join the guild, because there is nothing wrong with dreaming big. He notes that he can get on his feet there, make money. Lit interrupts him, saying that he does not like it. The guy says gloomily that he doesn't want to be tied down by anything under any circumstances. The elf says that in that case the purchase will be impossible. Lit grabs the bag and throws it in his bag, declaring that he will go and earn some money. He shouts that he will be back soon and asks to prepare the procedure on the site. The guy is sure that he will get what he wants. The elf tries to call him. An inspired Lit shouts that he will be back by lunchtime, because if they don't hurry, someone might buy such a good piece of land. The elf tries to stop him and doesn't understand what good the guy found in the land, which is a week's journey away on slow horses, and there is not a soul in sight except for a wasteland, but he decides to wait. There are 2 hours left until lunch. Lit runs down the steps. Lit walks down the street and thinks that he didn't know that buying land would cost him so much. He thinks about how independent people here can't even do quests. He analyzes the situation and decides that he needs to engage in economic activity, something related to plants. He thinks about a material that can be bought cheaply. Lit sadly remembers the elf's words about the guild and is a little lost. The guy sits with his head down. The policeman tries to wake him up and keeps calling. The hero's thoughts shift to the plants in the office and that he should bring them some bait because they are not in the best conditions. He does not understand what all the noise is about. His attention is drawn to a quarrel in an alley where 5 men loudly demand something from a short girl. He decides to watch them and assumes that the men might harm her or make fun of her. One of them pushes the girl and she falls. The hero hates it when people mock the weak and cannot stand the fact that they can turn a blind eye to it. Many people of all sorts and colors pass by the alley, but none of them offer to help. They only discuss this cruelty among themselves and move on. One of the men says it's time to end this, but his attention is drawn to a guy whose hand drops a handful of pollen. He casts a spell of rapid growth, and vines stretch out from him to the ill-wishers, wrapping them from head to toe, preventing them from moving. A flower grows on one of the vines. With his hood up, the boy walks past men completely bound in vines. They slowly pass out, but he tells them not to worry, as it's just pollen. Lit decides that he needs to get out of there quickly before the men see his face, because if he makes a fuss and becomes famous, it will hinder his ambitions. He looks at the girl who rises, and is glad that she is not badly hurt. The girl looks at her ill-wishers with a shudder. A girl with blonde hair and cat ears gets down on all fours and screams in the face of one of the defeated men that those who mock the weak will be punished by heaven itself. After some time, the food was ready. The vegetables had a crispy crust and the meat was dripping with aromatic juice. She asked to give this territory a name, and Manhwa supported her, saying that it was very inconvenient for everyone when the territory did not have a name. She assured him that she understood everything, but the guy realized that these were empty words, and in the meantime, the princess herself put her hand on the weapon. The girl drew her sword and rushed at Lit Ricard, telling him that she would do everything in her power to deliver him to the imperial city. However, after a few moments, she found herself tied up and disarmed by plants. And Lit, not even surprised by such behavior, simply silently looked at the girl. The princess looked up in admiration, noting that this was what she had expected from Lit, but he did not understand at all why she was so happy. Frau decided to intervene and said that it was not good to quarrel and offered to greet the girl, although Mama tried to carefully stop her, considering it dangerous. Adele was surprised. She had come to return Lit, but they were still glad to see her, and the guy himself was thinking about something. And then he decided to ask the princess for a small favor. Hearing these words, the girl seemed even happy, and her cheeks turned slightly pink. She listened attentively. They needed firewood for the party, but a tiger had recently appeared in their forest, so he asked Frau for protection. Or, to be more precise, he asked for an escort. In the forest, you have to be careful of falling trees. Adele, already walking with the girl, was wondering why she should do this, since she had so little time. Unexpectedly, Frau, with a smile, ran up to Lit, trying to convey that she, too, would like to know the name of this place. In the imperial capital, a little earlier, too late, Adele learned of Lita's expulsion. She couldn't believe it, because he had done too much for the victory of this empire. The servant reported that there were dissatisfied people among the court magicians. They said that he had been treated much better than he deserved. Adele clutched her fan fiercely. She supposed they were all jealous of his power or something. She knew it was a mistake to interfere with the court's affairs, even if it was Lit's wish. The knights were quietly talking about the princess breaking the iron fan. She was just a cruel princess knight, a mountain of muscles in a rage. However, just one furious look from her made them shut up. Gathering her hair into a ponytail, the girl ordered that transport be prepared to go after Lit, but her servant apologized for not being able to do so. This weekend, the girl was supposed to dine with Julian. It was an important meeting that would determine her future, and so the servant asked her to think again about her decision. The princess promised to return in time, but now she was walking through the forest with Frau, looking for logs. Suddenly the girl turned around and looked straight at the princess, and then asked if she really was Princess Adele. The girl agreed and added that she was also an honorary commander of the 15th Legion of the Empire. Frau was surprised and asked excitedly if Adele was a princess and a knight at the same time. The girl did not understand at first what caused such a reaction, and then she smiled. She grabbed the stick and then waving it around Adele explained that she may look like that, but she is still stylish, although not as stylish as Lit. Frau clapped her hands happily as she watched this performance. The guy really hadn't thought about it at all. Navi noted that the worried master lacked a little taste. The guy looked awkwardly at his assistant. He didn't expect her to be able to understand him. Frau asked if the princess was friends with Lit. At first the princess hesitated, but then, blushing, she explained that, in her opinion, it was much deeper. The guy is her comrade in arms. He is the only one who fought with her and covered her back. Therefore, she considered their relationship more solid than friendship. Then Frau asked if it was true that they were very close. When the girl agreed, the child from the flower people said that, in that case, she would also be friends with her. However, Adele looked away sadly. She didn't want to ruin Lit's mood, but she still had to return it, because it was her duty. Adele seemed to be replaying in her head someone's words that a girl shouldn't get involved with people she doesn't even know, because she deserves better, and if he likes her, she can do her duty. However, the girl was interrupted by a sharp scream. The dead tree was flying straight at Frau, who froze in fear in front of it. The princess realized that she didn't have time to react, and in the meantime, Frau just put her hand forward, as if she could catch this tree. However, Adele reacted quickly and managed to catch the huge trunk that was flying towards the girl. A little later, Lit and Nami watched in amazement as the wood cracked and cracked. They were so surprised that there was a huge tree lying behind the girls. But they were even more shocked by the fact that Adele was breaking the tree into logs with her bare hands. The girls surrounded Lit with demands to give the nameless land a name, and right now. The guy noted that the girl clearly continued to improve her skills even after the end of the war, because she was always very hardworking. He watched as Frau took the twig and watched the princess with admiration. It seemed the girl really liked her. Now Adele has an admirer. The princess encouraged Frau, who tried to break the branch with great effort but without result. Lit, watching this, only hoped that Adele would also like this village. Everyone was having fun drinking delicious wine, and only Adele sat to the side, silently watching everyone. But suddenly Frau approached her and offered her a snack. The princess refused because she had brought food with her, but quickly changed her mind when she heard that Lit himself had prepared the food. The girl carefully examined what they gave her. Although there was a lot of fat in it, it smelled delicious, so it was worth trying. Then she took a bite and chewed it and noted that it was very tasty. Frau was glad that the girl liked it. She also thanked Adele for helping her earlier, but the princess only noted that she was simply an escort and had to do so, but still accepted the apology and awkwardly smiled at her interlocutor. Unexpectedly, Lit sat down next to the girls. The guy asked the girl if it was really great to live like this. She looked away, as if she was thinking. The princess looked away in embarrassment and agreed, thanking the guy, since she didn't often get to see something like this. Looking around, Lit thought. He looked carefully at the nature around him, the house he built and the girls who surrounded him. It seemed he even remembered something from the past. Lit admitted that he was like her, which is why he found the scenery here so much more beautiful. Adele asked if it was because of the comparison with the less picturesque empire. Bowing her head, the girl apologized, because the reason why he had a hard time in court may be because of her. There are those who believe that it is not appropriate for a princess to be near him. But she promised that she would not tolerate such stupidity anymore and would try very hard to create comfortable conditions for him. The girl bowed respectfully and sincerely asked Lit to return to the empire. She understood and honestly said that losing his talent was as bad as losing 100 years of imperial history. Then, Lit asked if this was what Her Highness Princess Adele had wanted to say. Raising her head, the girl replied that she was born a princess. She simply could not become a knight if she did not continue to do what benefited her empire. The young man apologized, but still refused to return to the capital. He really likes to grow plants that grow here little by little, to collect firewood without thinking about anything, to live leisurely in nature, but still. He thanked Adele for coming here for him. She was glad to hear such words. The embarrassed girl covered her face with her hands and said that she was leaving here tomorrow early in the morning. And then he said that this land would be called the Village of Togen. The girls happily noted that this was a very beautiful name, and only Navi noticed that this name was from his homeland, but that was not bad. But she promised that she would never give up, she would return, and one day return Lit to the imperial capital. The young man smiled and agreed, but noted that only after another barbecue. The girl blushed and added that she would return as soon as she had settled her affairs. He asked why the girl was in such a hurry, to which she said that she had plans that she could not miss. Lit stretched and said that in that case it was definitely time for the girl to sleep, and when he was already leaving, she nevertheless sheepishly clarified that there was only one house here. The girl couldn't sleep in the same place as the guy. He noted that she really had a royal upbringing and seemed to have already thought of something. But in any case, he was thinking about building a guest house, which he did immediately, after which he wished the girl good night. A little later, the animal to which the princess arrived was already being untied from the gate. Lit noticed this and, remembering the girl's words, wondered if she had spoken about early morning, so why was she leaving late at night? It was not yet midnight, but Adele climbed onto her monster with tired eyes. This is what Lit, who was still awake, noticed, but he did not disturb the girl. Meanwhile, in the forest, a huge cat sat by the lake and drank the purest water. Old Lit would never have thought of it. In the middle of nowhere, away from all people and his past, using the plants he grew himself to have an afternoon barbecue. Right in front of him stood a strange stone, on which a strange symbol was carved. A little later, already in the imperial capital, The man was telling about how in Craig's domain they raise taxes to the limit and use the concept of debt in their own interests as a shield because it is important to use the people correctly, then they become good tools. He declared that he ruled his lands as he pleased. That was the way of the Craig family. His interlocutor found this interesting and replied that the way they used fools was where their skill was at its best. Getting into the carriage, the man said goodbye to the princess and said that he would eagerly await Adelia's response. As the carriage drove away, Adelia's brother, looking after it, asked his sister to make a decision as soon as possible, because this man occupies an important post in the empire. Formally, he is the one who rules the domain of Craig. The girl was lying in the bathroom, looking somewhere at the ceiling. Strength, character, loyalty, and boastful speeches about how he was the best and the greatest got on her nerves. She remembered that she had much more fun in the village of Togen than here. And a little later, in the village itself, Frau admitted that she wanted to ask for forgiveness. But in fact, Lita was more surprised that the girl knew such difficult words than the fact that she decided to say something like that. The guy asked what was wrong, and the girl sadly lowered her head. She admitted that she said something bad to Adele. And with so many people too. It was all clearly different from the life the guy dreamed of. The young man was surprised at what bad words Frau could say and, sitting down, asked what she had said. Frau remembered Adele's words about how she was sad that Masterlet was no longer with them, but she couldn't say anything. Not daring to tell, the girl only silently drooped even more, but the young man said that Adele would not be against it, which meant there was nothing to apologize for. He explained that it is not always possible to express everything in words. It is better to show your intentions through actions, especially if it is related to people. Frau noted that it seemed too late now that the princess had left. Lit asked not to worry about it. He said he had received the news this morning and noticed that something had happened just in time. It turned out to be Adele. The princess waved her hands joyfully. The girl noted that she had arrived too early and then rushed to Lit, begging him to return to the capital. Meanwhile, Nabi calculated that the journey there and back, even on a high-speed train, would take 8 days. Lit noted that the princess had left only 7 days ago. Adele admitted that she has a special transport. When he gets tired, she carries him on her back. While they were talking from the side, she had already decided to approach Adele to say something, but Lit interrupted her. He took out flowers and gave them to Adele with all his heart. However, this did not upset him at all, because he was happy even so. He joyfully raised his hands and confidently shouted that from today on, this is the village of Togen. The girl was very happy with such a gift and became terribly embarrassed, and then, frightening Frau, she fell to the ground. Lit sat opposite the princess. He admitted that she was fine. She was put to sleep by the finger. The guy did it on purpose, knowing that Adele was prone to overdoing it. He asked Frau if she would talk to the princess when she woke up, and the girl, full of determination and enthusiasm, agreed. And the guy himself went to cook dinner. Then Frau immediately called Navi. Meanwhile, it seems the princess was having nightmares about her past. Sitting by the broken carriage, the little girl looked at the magical symbol in the sky. Adele had long ago, after careful preparation and a great deal of effort, passed the examination of the order. She had sworn that as the first knight in the Imperial Guard, she would strive to live up to this honor. Memories of her as a knight assuring people to be calm because she would protect them played through her mind. They told her that monsters wouldn't come to such a place, and in general, how could a woman be a knight? They told her that she would always be just a capricious girl. But she remembered Lit's words on the battlefield, when he said that he would take care of the problem himself, because the princess had already done so much. He recognized her strength, which was exactly what she needed. The situation had changed. Now the girl's head was replaying the conversation with her brother, who was asking how long she planned to play the knight since the war was over. Despite everything that didn't go according to the guy's original plan, this place was very much like paradise for him. A wonderful place and pleasant company, what more could you want? Her brother admitted that he had enough. He even made her an honorary commander, although she was a very weak knight. The girl asked again, surprised and irritated, what all this meant. He had a great groom for her. It would be a great decision for the princess. But then suddenly, Adele opened her eyes. She was lying in bed in the middle of the room, surrounded by flowers and plants, and her sword stood next to her. The princess jumped up sharply, realizing that the sun was still high and she was sleeping. However, she assumed that Lit had taken care of her by using flowers to relieve her fatigue. Adele first assumed that perhaps she really did want to rest, but then she jumped up and started doing various exercises, thinking that it was time for her to work out. A little later, the princess was already in the forest. She decided to go for herbs, which would be a great workout. And winter will come soon, no one wants to miss firewood. However, the girl was tormented by doubts. She understood that she was simply running away, and this was not appropriate behavior for a knight. But if she didn't return to the capital, it wouldn't be a problem, especially since Adele herself didn't want to return. This caused her conflicting feelings, but something seemed strange to the girl. She felt someone else's gaze on her and assumed that it was a monster. However, no matter how hard the princess looked, she could not find the creature. The guy pointed to the right side of the grill where the food was being fried and explained that it was for the journalist and the merchant because they couldn't eat onions and garlic. The girls were surprised how he knew their secrets because it was true. Although at night the guy still doubted, maybe he still wanted to be alone. But it was already late. He slept surrounded by snoring girls who did not let him fall asleep at all. Perhaps it was just her imagination. Suddenly, Frau appeared before the princess and asked if everything was okay with the girl. She had woken up so early, but Adele assured her that she was feeling just fine now. After these words, Frau breathed a sigh of relief and admitted that she was glad to hear it. The princess admitted that Frau need not worry, she was not going to take lit today. With a blush, she added that she had had a very good time in the village of Togen, and that was why she had returned. To be honest, the girl herself would like to live here. Frau did not expect such words. She addressed the girl by name in surprise. However, suddenly, something shook the entire forest. Adele turned around. Seeing the huge sprouts, she immediately understood that it was Lit's magic, and therefore, apologizing, she ran back to the village first. She left Frau alone, full of determination. Household goods were scattered around the area. A huge cat was destroying everything around, aiming at Lit's house. The boy asked Nabi in surprise if this creature hadn't become stronger. The assistant used analysis and then said that she saw an increase in magical power. But why did he target this village, since they weren't cooking meat today? Lit had no way to catch him now, he could only get rid of the cat. But he still asked if the flower people had Matabi wine, to which he received a negative answer. Lit stood up when Nabi returned to him with a report. The girl said that this time it was not a guest who was entering the territory, but some kind of intruder. Nabi said that the reason for this behavior is a lack of water. Recently, they have been redirecting some of the water to deliver berry wine. Lit froze, realizing what was happening. He looked at the monster threatening his house and understood that it was his own fault. Suddenly, the guy was called out. It was Adele who intended to help. However, the guy asked her not to get rid of the cat. He asked to save the residents first, because it was not safe for them to continue in the same spirit. There was not much time. The girl decided to follow the order. By skillfully dodging the monster's attacks and distracting him by throwing stones, the girl was able to grab the flower people. She carried them to safety and returned back, intending to save the others. She understood that this was an advanced monster in front of her. It was clear that compared to the enemies they had back then, this was already good news. Right in front of the cat, the girl lost her footing and fell. Her head was spinning and everything was swimming before her eyes. It seemed that she had been running for too long and now she would have to pay for it. But still, she understood that she had to protect the others. Frau appeared right in front of her with a bucket filled with something. The girl called Frau's name in surprise, but she didn't even turn around. It was clear that she had something in mind. She poured everything she had in the bucket right onto the cat, who bared his fangs, preparing to attack. Some kind of beast-like monster, with a clear hostile reaction. Lit and Navi were surprised by this action, because they were sure that there was no more Matatabi wine, but at least it worked. Adele asked Frau to run, assuring her that she was okay. However, the girl herself refused. She said that she did not want to, because now it was her turn to protect the princess. A memory suddenly appeared in Adele's mind. She was crying bitterly in front of the girl who saved her life. She asked her to stop crying, then gently stroked her head and said that next time it would be her turn to protect someone, and therefore there was no time for tears. As she was leaving, she was followed by a boy, whom she told not to lie and not to be lazy. While he tried to convince her that he was keeping the monsters under control, it seemed to be Lit, but the princess did not know about it. Adele didn't understand how she could allow herself to forget this. Lit, meanwhile, knew that there was no time to wait any longer, for there were 2 lives at stake and he had to protect them. But he froze, clutching the seeds tightly when he saw something amazing. Frau, with her arms outstretched, protected Adele, who was sitting behind her. And when the cat had already raised his paw to strike, the girl still did not retreat, but only closed her eyes. But suddenly, Adele stood up and with one hand deflected the paw of the monster that was flying towards them. Not expecting this, even the cat himself froze, and the girl, full of determination, looked straight into his eyes and said that she seemed to understand something. She struck the cat back, causing it to fall down immediately. This shocked absolutely everyone who was watching from the side, even Frau, who was covered in Lita's plants. 100 years ago, underground ruins suddenly appeared in the northern continent of the Romancia Empire. The empire was at war due to the large number of monsters that constantly appeared from there. Adele, looking menacingly at the cat, ordered him to stand up. This made the boys freeze in even greater bewilderment. However, the princess did not even think of stopping there. She assured that she was ready to show who was stronger here. She beat the monster, who didn't understand anything, and said that she wanted to see what he was capable of. The girl intended not to leave him until the cat got tired. She struck, thinking that she was just a girl, just a princess. It was all a game. She was weak. In each of her blows there was something more than just a desire to save herself. These feelings are anger. She was angry at herself for losing herself in petty squabbles. But she must remember that she is a knight defending her people. She grabbed the cat's tail and threw it to the ground, leaving no chance. The girl was tired of being a princess who needed to be protected and had just proven to herself that she was capable of more. Everyone froze in surprise when the monster who lost this fight lay motionless next to the princess. And only Lit understood that even though Adele said it was dangerous, no one could defeat her in close combat. She was definitely stronger than everyone. A little later, the flower people carried the cat back to the eastern mountains, and Frau, having gathered her courage, approached Adele and apologized. This surprised the princess. Frau admitted that she thought that Adele would take Master Lit and therefore was rude to her, but the princess herself, not understanding what was being said, looked away. But after thinking for a moment, she looked at Frau and said that they were comrades in arms. Frau agreed. Now she and the princess were definitely comrades. Then, in order to save themselves, the southern continent built a huge wall on the land connecting the upper southern continent. This was done to prevent the invasion of monsters. So the only bridge between the north and the south was blocked. There was an awkward silence, and then Adele said that she was glad to meet Frau, and they really needed to change the fact that the girl still addressed her with respect. Lit, watching Frau and Adele laughing on the side, thought that the girl had spoken so formally that she could no longer do otherwise, and still noted that Frau was a good girl. And then he announced that it was time to have dinner before cleaning, and today he intended to use his special seasoning, and then he asked where the pots and pans were kept. It turned out that this was exactly what the tiger had come for. Lit asked the flower people if they knew anything about it. But it was Navi who explained it to him. She asked him to never serve his own spices to people again. In the morning, when the sun had already risen, the princess was getting ready to go home. Frau asked her to be careful, and Adele herself thanked her for her help. After thinking for a bit, the girl turned to the young man, who immediately stated that he was not going to go to the capital, but the girl wanted to say something else. She bowed respectfully and thanked Lit once again for his efforts in the Romancia Empire during the last 100-year war against the demons, and asked him to forgive her for her many disrespectful actions in Togen Village. She admitted that she had understood that he would not be happy in the imperial capital, and that she, who had driven him out, had the audacity to come here. It was all stupidity, based only on her own weakness and naivety, but even so, she really didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. Lit froze, surprised by Adele's words. The guy also apologized, but the girl said that she understood everything. She decided that she would say goodbye to him, but only for a while. This all meant that there should be almost no monsters on the southern continent. That's why Lit didn't understand how they could be here. She confidently declared that from now on she would only follow her own path and wished the master good luck. Smiling, he thanked the girl and said that if she got tired, she could always come to them to rest. They would only be glad to see her. At first, the girl smiled back. But then tears came to her eyes and she promised Lit that she would definitely come to them often. The guy agreed approvingly. The princess, her eyes already swollen from tears, wished everyone a good day. And then she ran off to the Empire. She decided to continue her fight. Adele always faces what even Lit can't bear. The guy noted that the princess is very strong and has always been that way. The determined young man knew that he couldn't run away anymore either. His role was to protect this village. This tiger and the lack of water, he knew that he had to solve this problem as soon as possible, and looking at the mountain he wondered what was going on there. Lit noticed Frau looking thoughtfully after Adele as she drove away. Then he suggested that she go for a walk. The girl, addressing the guy with the same respect, tried to carefully refuse. Navi noted that this was, in her opinion, a discrepancy between theory and reality. The northern and southern continents were practically cut off from each other. Then Lit realized that perhaps he had relied too much on information from the Empire. Then he understood everything and said that next time, he still had business in the city, after which he asked if Frau would like to go with him. Sometime later, in the Empire, namely in Craig's domain, Julian's servant came to him. He said that he had received news from Princess Adelia. The man asked if she had given her consent to the marriage and noted that she had made him wait longer than usual. The servant said that in short, there was a refusal, and it was written that way, even in capital letters. The princess herself had not even reached the Empire yet. She was resting somewhere in the lands not far from the village of Togen. The girl stretched and looked at the bright sunrise and noted that it was time to start living. The introduction of berries, red berries, blackberries, grapes, potatoes and turnips that do not require frequent watering, as well as cottages for guests, all this pleased the eye. Lit, pleased with himself, wiped the sweat from his forehead after planting the tree. He transplanted his mysterious seedling X into the soil, first a seed, then a sprout, a seedling and now planting, which means growth is going very well, which made the guy very happy. To be honest, he was a little nervous about this whole mystery plant thing, but out loud he just hoped it would grow well. Navi noted that this month's income and expenses from red berries, juice, harvest, and everything else far exceeded his income as a court mage. It could be said that Token Village had started off very well. The guy asked how many monsters there were and what class they were. The assistant noted that he was alone and that he was more of an average level than an advanced one. They had a really good harvest, but since Lith's arrival, it hadn't rained once. Definitely a water shortage to consider. It's all strange, although the plants are still growing so fast that Lith can't keep up with them. Still, the water problem needed to be solved as soon as possible, so Lit goes to the city to get resources and at the same time explores the surrounding area. Frau spoke to her mother. She asked the girl to be careful, but Frau assured that she would be fine. The girl threw on a cloak and took a dictionary with her. She apologized for taking so long to get ready, but Lit said that he himself had just gotten ready and suggested they walk a little to the meeting place with the transport guild. Frau agreed, and the young man noted that he had not been in the city for a long time, and so the guys set off on their way. After a while, they were already in the carriage. The girl who owned it recognized Lit and said that she was glad to see him in good health. The guy also greeted Mel and said that she looked well. Frau asked the girl's name again, and then Lit assured her that she didn't have to worry, since Mel was a member of the Transport Guild, which was also connected to Mia. The girl noted that Lit was a magnet for girls, but the guy himself nervously asked Mel not to talk nonsense, especially in front of Frau. Laughing, the girl added that they would arrive only tomorrow morning, and therefore advised them to rest. Navi and Lit watched as Frau flipped through the pages of her dictionary. The assistant noted that the girl was clearly worried. Lit explained that Adele's departure had affected her understanding of the outside world. He thought he should give the girl a little push, but of course, still avoid unnecessary risks. Monsters in this world vary greatly in strength requirements depending on the danger level. The lowest are the weakest and therefore take in droves. The intermediate ones have magic, and the advanced ones have a large number of troops, including a magic factory. The boys finally arrived, and Mel wished them a good day, reminding them of the meeting in the evening. Lit suggested getting a map first, but noticed that Frau had become even more nervous. Nabi also noticed this, but the guy calmed both girls down and suggested going. As they walked through the city, the girl was frightened by the people passing by, and it seemed she was ready to cry, but suddenly, Lit called her. They arrived at the flower shop and the salesman greeted them cheerfully. Lit noted that they had a lot more choice than he thought. He pointed to the plant and told the girl that it was freelance. It smelled so good that it became a popular alternative to perfume. Frau also noted the pleasant aroma. The guy with interest told the girl about different plants, about grapevines, about elastic ivy from which you can even weave a rope, and about other plants. The seller noted that Lit is very knowledgeable about plants and suggested going inside. Seeing an unusual plant, the guy was surprised and asked what it was, because he had never seen anything like it. Then the seller explained that some of them do not grow in the city, like the greenhouse lily that interested Lita. The woman who was watching this quietly laughed. Then the guy turned to her and asked if she felt any calmer. Turning to Frau, he added that the world was not as bad as it might seem, although he himself had only recently learned about this. The girl smiled and then said that she thought the same. The boys saw a flower glowing in the dark and decided that they would definitely take it. When Frau asked permission to take the bag, the young man agreed. The girl asked if they should retreat, but Lit refused. After all, when he lived in the Empire, he had to fight almost alone. He thanked the girl for agreeing to go with him, and she gratefully promised that she would take good care of her new bag. The meeting time was approaching, and Navi noticed that they were being followed since the morning. Then the guy asked if there were any workarounds. Navi started to draw a map, and then said that after 300 meters they should turn right, and then after 50 meters turn left. Lit grabbed Frau by the shoulders and ran, saying that they needed to speed up. However, they were not the only ones who sped up. Lit asked Navi for a report, and she reported that the enemy was 50 meters away. Lit and Frau turned the corner, and when their pursuers reached it, they were surprised not to see anyone, but grass was already growing under their feet. The net flew onto the heads of the pursuers, and Lit and his companion watched from above, expecting to see who had been following them all day. But to their surprise, it was Manhwa, with a girl unknown to them. Mia apologized to Lit for what happened. She said that this girl is Diaz from the Artist Guild. She is the goddess of the brush. She was the one who was asked to draw the labels for the bottles, because although she is not reserved, she is very good. However, she said that she could not draw the label until she saw a suitable model. And Manhwa admitted that she liked to interview in person. The young man breathed a sigh of relief. Diaz said she was ready to draw, but she asked Frau to take off her hood. The girl herself was surprised, and Lita was even angry. The vegetable kebabs were for Frau and her people, and then the boy gave another kebab to Navi, who accepted it with gratitude and a smile. And not even with lower or advanced, but with monsters of a special class. Lit would like to get rid of him as soon as possible, but first he needed to evacuate everyone so that they would not be harmed. Meanwhile, the girls began to wake up. He replied that the girl would not do this, and then Diaz replied that since the portrait for the label had to be connected with the flower people, then if Frau did not take it, the artist would not paint it. She left the choice up to them. Then Frau decisively threw the hood off her head and said that since Diaz was a friend of their friends and smelled so good, then she could probably be trusted. Diaz was mesmerized by how beautiful the girl was. She asked her to sit and smile so she could draw. Frau forced a smile, but Lit immediately made a remark that she was wrong. He advised the girl to remember the shop they were in. The girl remembered today, her new bag and beautiful flowers, which caused a sincere smile to shine on her face. Meanwhile, Diaz was diligently drawing while the guy watched her work. Frau remembered looking in the mirror with her new bag bought by Lit. Suddenly, Diaz put down her pencil. The drawing was ready. In it, Frau, with a slight blush, smiled tenderly, closing her eyes. When she finished work, the tiger cats were already sleeping in each other's arms. When the girls woke up, they screamed in horror, not understanding at all whether they were so drunk that they began to hallucinate. Meanwhile, the monster itself, in appearance more reminiscent of a tiger, prepared to attack. Frau and Lit were delighted with the work done and thanked Diaz for her help. The girl admitted that she had wanted to meet a representative of the flower people since she read a book in her childhood and sincerely thanked them for this opportunity. The boys were about to leave and noted that they were looking forward to seeing the finished bottles. Diaz added that she had a special edition for them. When the boys were returning to the village of Togen, Lit thanked Frau again for agreeing to go to the city with him. The girl happily replied that she had a lot of fun. She clenched her fists and said that they should definitely go back there. And then the guy replied that they would definitely go for a walk again. When Frau fell asleep, Lit asked Navi to report the situation, and then the girl appeared and said that she was reporting. She remapped the area between the village of Togen and the city within a radius of 1 kilometer, due to which the accuracy of the map was increased. About 20 kilometers from the city, the area gradually becomes less green. At a distance of 30 kilometers, the greenery completely disappears. Navi explained that only a certain radius around the village dies, which is very unnatural. There were no signs of water shortages in the city, meaning that the problem was only in their vicinity. Lit remembered that the owner of the shop had told him today how he had heard from his great-grandfather that the area was once surrounded by greenery, but that the water there suddenly disappeared, as if it avoided these lands. The monster roared loudly before attacking. Lit ordered Navi to remove everyone from the battlefield. Although he didn't want to, he had no choice and decided to use a special combat herb. Navi added that the sea was 30 kilometers west of the village. The guy replied that even his magic could not cover that distance. In any case, Lit noted that he had stocked up on everything he needed and that he should definitely try all possible methods. A month later, in the imperial capital, the cat rejoiced at their victory. After all, not only bottles with Frau, but also other labels became very popular. Sales were on the rise. The girl suggested that they should try to release a couple more batches of different types. The label business made her so happy, she noted that they were very lucky with the idea. However, the man standing to the side seemed to be watching her and ordered his servant to follow this cat. A secret council was held in the capital, and the main topic of discussion was Lith. It had been 6 months since Ricault's departure, and it seemed to them that there were no signs of concern. However, his current location was unknown, his trail was lost almost immediately, but this was obvious because he was good at this. After all, he is a man who avoids attention and does not strive for wealth. People driven by money and fame are easier to control, and this hero seemed frightening to them, but they still decided to leave him alone. Now that they have won the war, their empire does not need heroes. Since he does not cause them problems, they can keep him. Then one of the men asked about his research, but since it was related to plants, no one was interested in it. And one of the council members was thinking about another. He was thinking that it would be good if their princess became a little ordinary. When the monster was already very close, the young man used accelerated growth, but he was not allowed to finish what he started. Someone called out to Lit and asked him to wait, so he abruptly stopped the attack. At this time, but in a slightly different place, the soldiers were talking among themselves about the princess invading the guild district. They assumed that she was irritated after the war. However, this did not answer the question of why she would go to that district again. They decided that it was most likely because of Ricault again, because she was constantly looking for him. Meanwhile, the girl herself was in the closed archives. She ran along the cabinets and shelves with a lantern, as if dancing in the darkness. The girl in a light dress and heels smiled, remembering something while looking for the necessary papers, although their removal was strictly prohibited. Lit himself asked her for help to find out some information for him. And although the girl usually did not go to the library, today was a special occasion. However, the only thing she noticed so far was the huge amount of dust. The girl finally found the book she needed. It was a list of purchases of magical artifacts of Abigail the Collector. She took out the book and began to study it. Most of the magical artifacts in the Forbidden Archives were supposed to have been purchased by this man. She flipped through the years and months and came across the purchase of seeds on July 17, 2017. She saw something that shocked her. A week later, in the village of Togen Lit, he was furiously stomping on the ground, not understanding where all the water was. A month had passed since he had been to the city. During this time, he had tried various methods to solve the problem of water shortage, but all of them had been unsuccessful. Summer had already arrived, but there was still no water. The guy understood that this could not go on. Adele approached the tired guy and thanked him for his work. She brought a tray of food. The plants ran into the monster before they could pierce it, and the guy turned around, realizing that it was Frau who had called him. The girl was calling her people. Putting it in front of the boy, she informed him that rest was also important, so she brought him chicken soup and ham. Then the hungry young man realized that it was already noon. He thanked the princess and apologized for making her do this on vacation. However, the girl did not mind at all. He noted that the dish was delicious as always. She cooked simply magnificent chicken dishes, although Lit had never seen her cook anything else. Then the girl started talking about the information that the guy asked her to find. He immediately asked what she had managed to find out. Then the girl said that she had found it in the library of the capital, and then pointing to the sprout, she asked if it was that mysterious tree. The princess carefully touched the leaves, but there was a noise behind the boys, and Lit immediately turned around to see what had happened. Frau came running and said that a tiger had come to them, which was already standing behind her. The guy was surprised, because after Adele kicked him out, he had not come down to them anymore. Lit could no longer let him do whatever he wanted. For this, he bought special seeds to catch monsters in the city. Navi flew in and apologized, saying that for some reason he had not been noticed. The princess stood up, asked Lit to stop, and headed in their direction. She stopped in front of the tiger and asked if he wanted to tell her something. Adele and the huge cat silently looked into each other's eyes. The animal bowed its head to the girl's feet. She screamed, pointing towards the huge cat, and her people instantly and without thinking rushed towards him, quickly understanding Frau's idea. Everyone froze in amazement, and the princess understood what he wanted. She turned around and told everyone that this tiger was asking them to follow him. Lit, all wet with sweat, stopped to catch his breath. The boys followed the tiger up the mountain, not understanding where he was leading them. It had been 2 hours since they entered the eastern mountains. Then Nabi reminded that it was because the master's walking speed was too slow. Frau asked not to despair, but they were interrupted by Adele, who said that they had arrived. Lit was surprised to note that there was nothing here at all. And then he asked if the princess really understood this tiger, to which she answered the girls that she understood it only a little. Perhaps this was some kind of ability of hers? Suddenly something started to happen, everything started to shake, and the flowers in Frau's hair started to bloom. Navi reported that there was a magical reaction in front, a descendant of magic was coming towards them. Suddenly, the trees in front of the company seemed to move to the sides, creating an arch. The forest parted and a road opened up leading straight to the lake where that very magic stone stood. Lit was surprised that there had been such a place in the mountains all this time. Nabi reported that magic simply filled the air. The girl also said that the magic in the air increases the power of magical creatures. Adelia added that apparently because of this, Frau's flowers were activated. This is the perfect place for flower viewing. But Frau only asked what it was. The princess explained that it was when people enjoyed the beauty of flowers and spent time together. The girl found it interesting but asked not to do it to her. The flower people rushed towards the huge cat and surrounded the monster from all sides, leaving him no chance to retreat. Lit was worried. It was a secret area which was most likely blocked, and if so, it was no wonder the navigation couldn't find it. For the guy, it was all very exciting. He looked closely at the stone slab. It seemed the pattern was perhaps familiar to him. Looking around, he realized that this was some very ancient place. And this tiger climbing on the rock was his guardian. The young man had already tried several spells, but there was no reaction from the stone slab at all. He asked Nabi what she thought about this stream. The girl said that in her opinion, this stream contains weak but pure magical energy. Thanks to this, the water is useful not only for plants but also for people. However, this stream is too small and shallow, which means it will not be able to solve the water problem in Token Village. Even if it is used, it will only serve as a temporary solution and will quickly dry up. Nabi concluded that it would be impossible to solve the water problem in the village, and that building a water channel would be a difficult task even for Lit. The guy agreed, upset. Then he asked what about the stone slab, but the girl replied that there was no data about it in her database. She also noted that it could be an entrance to a dungeon with monsters, which means that activating it without preparation is dangerous. The guy sat down and told the girl that this pattern definitely seemed familiar to him, and even if it was a dungeon, he could handle it. Now he was ready to seize any opportunity. People deftly dodged the attacks of the terrible creature. While Lit tried to understand what was happening, why they were holding him back, it was a real mass battle. Lit was upset, but he managed to calm himself down and called Frau and Adele because it was already getting dark and it was time to go home. That was enough for today. He took some of this water as a sample, hoping that it would help solve the water problem. They hadn't been able to find out anything yet. Frau suggested that they could accompany Lit even in the dark, but he thanked her but refused and suggested they return home early. After all, it was time to throw a welcome party for their new friend. The boys returned to the village of Togen together with the tiger. The flower people were very happy to see him. Lit, watching from the side, even froze. This big cat seemed very cool to him. And then he turned to Adele and asked what the name of this tiger was. The girl replied that his name was Nusi and he was the guardian of the forest. The princess said he made it clear he wanted to be her pet, so she took the liberty of naming him. The guy noted that Adele gave him a typically straightforward name. Everyone was happy about their new friend, and the young man stroked him and replied that he was glad to meet him. The satisfied tiger licked the guy as a greeting. But it seems that Lit himself, covered in the drool of the huge cat, did not appreciate such a gesture at all. The flower tribe people held bowls of some kind of water in their hands. As they approached, they took a big sip and sprayed it all directly onto the creature. Navi and the young man watched the fun from the sidelines. The girl noted that it had become even more lively here. Manhwa and the others also joined them. Lit did not notice when they arrived, but as the village elder, the guy was only glad to have guests. Seeing that Lit's face had become serious again, Nabi asked if he was still thinking about the water problem. The guy stretched tiredly and agreed, thinking out loud what else he could try. Suddenly, Adele came up to them and asked if Lit had a minute to continue the conversation about what she had found out. The guy jumped up. It seemed he had already forgotten. Then he asked if she had managed to find out anything about the mysterious tree and, filled with emotion, waited for an answer. The girl said that this is a world tree, and in her opinion, it is an ash tree. Lit was shocked. How could this baby be the world tree? Adele herself knew about him only from children's fairy tales. Long ago, in the center of the world stood the world tree. Spirits sang and danced in the sky, pure winds blew and crystal waters flowed. All living things were enveloped in mana, the world was filled with abundance and happiness. Suddenly, the monster staggered and then slowly began to fall, its eyes slowly closing. But one day, the world tree disappeared. Gradually, the mana in the air began to flow out, and the spirits disappeared. Only grief and strife remained. This was the legend of the world tree, and in their time, only members of the royal family knew about it. Adelia said that according to the information she was given, the seed was silver in color and the sprout emitted a rainbow light. Everything was exactly as in the legend. Lit said that he had a monocotyledonous plant growing, and the world tree was a dicotyledonous ash. However, there was no sign that it was a monocotyledonous plant, which is simply impossible for a normal plant. The guy assumed it was mimicry, but that wasn't all the news. There is one man who buys a lot of suspicious things in different countries. His name is Collector Abigail, he is a court magician, and there was one interesting item on his shopping list. For some reason, he decided that the seed was fake and left it in the room with other junk. Lit was surprised by the princess's information-gathering skills. However, the girl noted that it was them who should be admired. After all, here in the village of Togen, thanks to him, a new world tree was born for the first time in several thousand years. The boy screamed in horror. This tree would attract too much attention to their village, so he cursed himself for being too curious. But suddenly, he realized that if they did not solve the problem with the lack of water, the world tree could simply die. It seemed that while everyone was happy, only he was so worried. He sat with his legs crossed and thought, lack of water, strange stream, strange monument, and now the world tree. It seemed like the problems were only getting bigger. But still, Lit slapped himself in the face and ordered himself to stop panicking. He was the head of the village. When the young man finished distributing the food, he turned to check if everyone had enough and saw a whole crowd of happy people who in unison wished each other and the young man bon appetit. Eventually, he fell to the ground fast asleep, and now he was not a scary monster, but a peacefully snoring kitten with huge claws and fangs. The guy asked Navi to take a sample of water from the stream and analyze it. Then the girl asked why such a rush, but he replied that he wanted to activate that monument as soon as possible because they needed any hint. The monument and the stream were to be the key to solving the water shortage problem. Lit was sure of it. Suddenly, Manhwa approached Lit and asked if they would drink. The guy noted that the girl was just terribly drunk. The other cat pushed her away and told her to go where she was going. Manhwa was complaining under her breath as she left that she was being offended, and even the guy felt awkward from such a sight. But Mia still stayed with Lit and asked if he was free. The young man apologized, saying that he had something to do. The girl understood the guy's words, although she was clearly upset by this and looked away sadly. Then, Lit still said that he would find time to talk to Mia. Suddenly, Manma's voice was heard. Speaking of an urgent warning, she was holding a jar of mountain water and assured that it would help her think clearly, because it was important. Suddenly, Lit shouted that this water was not to be drunk, which scared the cat. She fell gracefully, spilling all this water right onto the world tree. Lit froze in horror as he watched the water slowly flow down the tree, and they didn't even have time to analyze the water. The next morning, a worried Frau asked if everything was okay, since Lit hadn't slept at all. The guy sat in front of the tree wrapped in a blanket all night. He wished the girl good morning and told her that he was worried about the baby, so he was looking after him. Lit realized that the flower people had drugged him with wine, in which case he was even lucky. But now the guy still thought that everything was fine with him, but he couldn't be left without attention, and then Navi appeared. The girl said that she would look after him because Lit needed to sleep. The guy wanted to refuse, but met Navi's serious gaze. She leaned over the headman threateningly and said that he was thinking too much. She had already told him that she would help, and then sternly asked if the guy understood her, to which he sharply agreed. Lit thanked Navi and asked Frau to take care of the other fields, to which the girl convinced him that she could do everything in the best possible way. Lying down on his bed, the guy thought that he was terribly tired yesterday after a hike in the mountains, and he was also very interested in what Mia wanted to talk to him about. Then he decided that he would definitely ask her later. The cats were driving back to town, upset. Mama couldn't believe she had done this and knew Lit would definitely be angry. But noticing that Mia was also sad, the girl decided to ask her what happened. Then she admitted that she wanted to ask Lit for advice, but she failed. The thing is, 4 days ago, something interesting happened in the capital of the empire. Mia was resting and was happy that she had become the winner of the economic war and assured that the largest independent guild could wait for her. Suddenly, a man approached the cat and noted that she seemed to be doing well. He said that he was a member of the Maiden's Cup Guild, which researched illegal substances. While the crowd rejoiced, Lit was amazed that they had subdued the creature in just a few minutes. Navi interrupted him, saying that since they were here, they should deal with the monster. The girl took off her glasses in surprise. This guild is the leader among researchers. Mia offered the man to sit down. He thanked her and gave her a gift. He said that they learned that a red berry merchant had suddenly appeared in the autonomous region and his goods were always selling like hotcakes. Mia explained that it was all thanks to the drug company she had managed to sign a contract with and that it was just luck. The man only noted that the girl should not be too modest. In the Empire, it was all simple. If they left the monsters alone, they could certainly attack again, so in the Empire they just got rid of them on the spot. But noticing something, the guy froze. The flower people surrounded the monster and tried their best to lift it, and because it was too heavy, they let out loud cries to give themselves strength. Lit didn't understand whether they really wanted to return him to the eastern mountains, and then Frau explained that this cat guarded the fields. Usually he eats only berries and chases away the animals that destroy them. For this they treated him to a drink. Probably today he was hungry because of the strong smell of meat. Lit's answer eyes, he realized something. Here, they live in symbiosis, but the guy had only one way out, to get rid of them or to respond with force. That's exactly what he would have done if he were alone now. Meanwhile, the flower people were dragging the animal hard but slowly. Nabi exhaled heavily, because she understood that this was only the beginning, but she still collected her thoughts and said that she was counting on Lit, because he was the elder of this village. The guy raised his head enthusiastically. It seemed that these words touched his soul and he agreed. And then he ran to the flower people, intending to help them carry the huge cat to the eastern mountains. When Lit took a small bite, he froze, covering his mouth with his hand, as if something had happened. Of course, he scared those around him. Alarmed, Nabi immediately rushed to the master, not understanding what had happened. Lit turned around and asked Frau, Mia, and a sleepy Manhwa to join their mission as well. To celebrate the defense of their village, he suggested that they all work together, and then drink again. A little later, when they had already finished, Lit sat by the window and thought. Navi would take care of the bookkeeping, and Frau and her people would take care of the fields and farms. The wholesale supplier will be the Golden Path Merchant Guild. Mia is responsible for this. The information operation is handled by the wings of the Feather Guild, namely Manhwa. And the headman and main protector of this village is Sam Lit. The biggest problem is water supply. They are currently surviving on spring water, but it is not known how long this will last. And the crops that can be grown are limited to those that do not require much water. They simply will not be able to produce them in large quantities. The second problem was good food. What Frau cooks is quite good, but it's all about the taste of the ingredients. The culinary skills for developing seasonings, in Lit's opinion, were definitely beyond him. Suddenly, the guy was very surprised by something. He looked at the pot on the window with admiration. Something began to grow from the mysterious seed. A small sprout broke through the soil. This baby turned out to be a monocotyledon and very light. If you look closely, you can see tints from blue to purple, from red to orange. It shone beautifully, gradually changing shades. In the boy's opinion, it was the light of magic, although he still did not know what kind of plant it was. The young man carefully poked his finger at the small sprout. The young man fell to the ground, and the frightened girls rushed to him, asking if the meat was poisoned or if it was rotten. Lit, without getting up, also raised his other hand to his mouth, frightening the girls even more. And then he grabbed the pot, hugging it tightly to himself. He admired how beautiful it was and hoped that it would grow as soon as possible. And Navi watched this in complete amazement. She noted that she found it disgusting, which scared the guy. Meanwhile, the village of Togen is just starting out and its inhabitants are determined to do everything in their power. And the mysterious seed X has turned into a bud of X. Morning came, and Frau opened her eyes. When she wakes up, she immediately starts having breakfast. After that, the girl gets ready. It seems that her hair was a little out of order today. Today the girl is on field duty. She will be tending the garden along with Lit and the rest of the villagers. The girl was very happy that she saw more fruit than before. Meanwhile, everyone else is resting and also preparing drinks and juices. The girl and her people especially liked trampling the berries because it's like dancing. And then it was time for lunch. The girl told Lit that today the turnips they had sown last time were ready to eat. Lit happily asked if Frau had really prepared all this for him and the others. After hard work, lunch seemed especially tasty, and after lunch, the flower people liked to take a nap because they felt so good and warm in the sun. Frau felt very energetic. Lit and Frau were just relaxing, sitting in the sun, and the guy asked if the flower people were doing photosynthesis. Nabi decided that it was very uncultured and Frau froze. She still didn't understand many words. The girl took out a book that she really needed now. Lit froze in surprise. But unexpectedly for everyone, the young man spread his arms out to the sides, raised his head with tears in his eyes, and joyfully shouted that this dish turned out to be unexpectedly very tasty. The girl had a folk dictionary in her hands. She happily said that it was very important. But Lit thought, now it is clear why the girl understands their language. She studied it from a dictionary, but it is not clear where she got it from. Frau admitted that a kind person had given it to her a long time ago. The guy wanted to ask what kind of person would go so far, but he was again very surprised by something. The book had his master's signature on it, which made Lit cringe in horror, while Navi noted that those days had been simply awful. Frau immediately asked if everything was okay, and the young man himself thanked her for her concern. The guy was truly surprised that his master visited their village and even taught them the language. But it is thanks to the mentor that he can talk to Frau like that, and he should thank him for that. The girl only looked at the guy with embarrassment. Before, it was hard for her, scary and sad. Everyone was sick, and she didn't know what to do, but now everything is good and everyone is smiling, even Lit and his friends. The girl smiled broadly and admitted that she was very happy. Meanwhile, the young man remembered that the cats were supposed to come today, and just in time he saw Mia, who was already greeting him. The young man asked where Manhwa was, and the cat confessed that she had left her, since she had not come at the appointed time. Perhaps she had not slept all night and had overslept? Meanwhile, the unknown girl was running through the desert lands holding a crying Manhwa in her arms. She was happy that she found him, while the cat apologized and said that she had no choice. The girls froze in bewilderment. They did not expect this, and such a reaction seemed very strange to them. The journalist even admitted that it made her cry. Not only she but Frau cried too. They went straight to the village of Togen to see Lit. Lit suggested using something to package the berry alcohol. He also suggested using different pictures for each type of wine. Mia was pleased with the offer. It was a good way to differentiate the product. She promised to talk to the master from the Artists Guild. The guy understood that it would be a simple deal, but it would definitely be interesting. However, their discussions were interrupted by Navi. She wanted to tell something not very pleasant. Another uninvited guest was rushing towards them, and at a very high speed. Lit and Mia asked in disappointment if this was happening again, but the assistant angrily assured that she had nothing to do with it. But she still added that the master knew him. The guy was trying to make something out, peering into the distance. He hoped that he didn't have a meeting scheduled for today. It seemed he was able to make out something, but the stranger was already at the gate, intending to go in. The girl got off the monster she was riding, and her cloak was adorned with the coat of arms of the imperial house, which Lit definitely noticed. He realized that in front of him was Her Majesty Adele, and Manhwa was timidly trudging behind her. Adele herself seemed very happy to meet him. The guy promised not to do it again, and therefore asked the girls not to cry. A little later, when Lit was already finishing his shashlik, Mia approached him. She had a request to the guy, as the owner of this place. The girl, in her joy at meeting him, lifted the guy up, squeezing him so hard that his back cracked loudly. Adele awkwardly apologized to the guy. Meanwhile, Mia asked Manhwa who it was, but the cat only cried and apologized because she didn't know who the girl was. Pointing at Adele, Manhwa said that this imperial woman told her that she would not let her go until she answered her. The girl apologized for the mockery, saying that it was just a misunderstanding because she heard that the cat was a member of the Information Guild. Lit introduced the stranger to the others. Her name was Adelia La Romancia, the 6th princess of the Romancia Empire, and commander of the 15th Imperial Legion of Knights. The girl happily waved her hands, noting that Lit was as usual in his repertoire, and the guy himself noted that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Meanwhile, the cats whispered that this girl was too scary for a princess. Adele admitted that she didn't know that Lit was here in the village and it was hard for her to find him. Meanwhile, Frau, standing behind him, called out to the guy. The princess called Lit to return to the imperial city and together beat those who had driven him out. She was personally ready to get even with these courtiers. These words frightened not only Frau, but also Lit himself. The girl vehemently declared that they must rely on force, because force is violence, and violence is force. The young man only asked her not to use violence disguised as philosophy, but the princess proudly raised her head. The guy admitted that he appreciated such care, but he was not going to return to the imperial city and wanted to live a normal life. Adele was simply horrified by what she heard. If he became an ordinary person, this world would be full of lone warriors who want to destroy it. That's what the princess thought. In her opinion, Lit is too modest, because even during the war he hid his face and name. He said he had had enough of this imperial city. The princess first pouted, and then sadly bowed her head. The old man admits that this is a difficult request, but asks for help. The hero decides that there is a need to return to the village for help from Mr. Rit. The old man says that one rat will not cause any problems, but adds that tomorrow there will be nothing left of this place. Rin says it gives him goosebumps. Delivery day, Pyrella Mansion, where Manhwa arrived. She introduces herself as Ms. Manhwa from the Information Guild. The heroine informs Pyrell that they are planning to release an additional article today. The article reveals that Pyrell, one of the leaders of the Maiden's Cup Guild, has been holding secret meetings with a mysterious man from the Empire. Manhwa mentions that in addition to creature trading and market manipulation, there is possible espionage for the Empire. Pyrell asks if this is a new comedy column. She notes that the Information Guild only reports the truth. The heroine says that she heard that the Emperor owns a restaurant in this city. Manhwa says the guild artists did a great job in creating an accurate portrait. The heroine expresses doubt that one cannot always rely on the master since he has his own affairs. She also adds that he was identified yesterday. The heroine notes that the emperor was at the port, planning to board a ship that will leave for the imperial capital tomorrow. She admits they don't have direct evidence yet, but it's true. The girl says that they will soon have evidence. She suggests questioning the employees of the Lapsic Company or the 3 beastmen who were brought in yesterday. He believed that problems only arise because of idiots. The old man expresses disappointment, stating that there are also many fools in the south. He points out that the store has already burned down and there are no more employees. She also notes that they are good at running, but they don't always think. Manhwa notes that the Information Guild is keeping order in this area. Pyrell notes that if the heroine didn't need anything, she would have already published the article. The girl confirms that they understood the essence of the situation and expresses satisfaction. The heroine explains that in Gartland the contract has absolute power. She offers to sign the document, guaranteeing that all articles will be burned. Pyrell refuses to comply with the demand, stating that it is impossible for him. He also says that people like them can easily get rid of one stupid cat. She thinks that the master can help this time. Manhwa notes that Torgan Village will not be able to prepare the required amount of red berries, and adds that there is not enough water either. Manhwa explains that this is why they cling to the Empire's power, adding that the guilds wield enormous power in the region, and even a person with immense wealth cannot resist them. The heroine turns to the leader of the Maiden's Cup Guild, reminding him that he should be well aware of the situation. The girl states that the Information Guild, Winged Hand, is not inferior in strength to their guild, and warns against underestimating the situation. She offers to sign a contract or spend the rest of your life in prison. The guild leader firmly declares that he will leave the place immediately. The heroine notices that there is a huge crowd on the street and a patrol squad is present. Manhwa reminds that she kept her promise and destroyed her article as agreed. She claimed that someone unknown had used her sketches and published the article under his own name, taking all the credit. The police approach Pyrell and ask to talk to him. The heroine decides to go buy donuts. The heroine talks about the need to make a collection of stories about the village of Torgan. Mia notices a new store on the main street, located in a prime location, and also many new lovely employees. The heroine says that they apologize to her and acknowledge the mistake in placing the order. Manhwa expresses surprise, stating that she doesn't understand anything, but apparently she has talent. She notices that the situation has suddenly gotten worse. Mia can't believe how much the store has affected the situation. The heroine suggests trying something new and reassures others, saying that there is no need to worry. Mia says she knows what kind of sign she wants and decides to order one from the Artists Guild for the sign. The heroine notices that the new place requires a new name. Mia states that they are starting a new journey towards their dream, but notes that the name New Journey is too long for the store. The heroine happily says that wealth is getting closer. She thinks that if she had not drunk then, she could have prevented the current problem. Mia argues that success is also a talent, emphasizing that their destiny depends on themselves. Manhwa adds that she wants to try to become a journalist and asks for permission to stay for a while longer. Mia says that she is always happy to help her friends. The heroine declares that she will definitely repay the debt someday. The heroine expresses her willingness to wait as long as necessary. The text states that here you can buy wine and other products produced in the village of Torgen, which was written about earlier. Also mentioned is the title of the article, New Journey, from Gartland, Main Street 133, author Manhwa, artist Diaz. The hero sums it up by saying that the heroine forced Perel to hand over the land and assets so that Mia could continue to carry out orders. Manhwa claims that it is an eye for an eye, and claims that Perel started it all. She thinks that for now she won't tell anyone about the connection between the Imperial spy and the Red Berries, so as not to irritate Mr. Ritt anymore. Ritt is happy that everything was resolved without casualties. She asks to be praised for her good work. One of the girls suggests trying some special donuts she made. The girl doesn't know when he noticed it and says the scar doesn't hurt anymore. Ritt notes that she was able to cope with the situation. The heroine expresses pleasure but asks not to tell Mia about it. The heroine declares that now it is her turn to help others. Manhwa has done research into ancient farming methods and explains that she has studied ancient documents about spirits. The heroine says that she has discovered the true nature of these ruins. The merchant notes that without wars, the development of magic is delayed by 100 years. The hero notes that no one noticed that the documents were fake. He says he has other priorities now and needs to wait until the dust settles. Manhwa wrote in the article that she used plant magic, and the merchant adds that she hasn't heard about it for a long time. The hero reports that the hero invader is hiding in the south. Ritt learns that he has a guest from the village of Torgen. The hero asks if they have plans for today. The girl says that she doesn't understand anything that's happening. The box won't open. Manhwa says that magic should have helped. The girl points to the dungeon of the monster that controls water. Ritt expresses doubt about the veracity of the data. The guild member assures that the information is confirmed by his organization. The hero wonders why the dungeon won't open, assuming that they are missing something to gain access. Mia suggests taking a break and eating. She says that tea helps clear the mind of unnecessary thoughts, also noting that the food is delicious, but she would prefer to drink wine instead of tea. The hero warns that it is hot now and one must be careful with the water balance, especially for the beast, cats. The girl explains that their region is at a lower latitude than the Empire, so the climate is dry and warm, and summer has just begun. The group of heroes expresses concern that the area has been suffering from drought for 4 months now, and the problem of water shortage has not been resolved. Mia notices that the water level in the pond has not decreased despite the prolonged drought. Manhwa expresses regret over recent events. The heroes notice that the water level in the pond has remained the same, even though the sun has been shining all day. The hero notices that there is some kind of effect on the pond. Ritt suggests that the pond and the monument are somehow connected. He reports that Mia's business is booming, but water shortages could cause supplies to dry up. Also, the red berries, which are important for healing, are starting to run out. The hero suggests that Nabi punch a hole in the ground to create a passage into the dungeon, intending to solve the water problem. Nabi warns against the action, stating that it is dangerous and the consequences cannot be predicted. The heroine confidently states that they have another idea and they can change the location and offers to discuss the situation with the others. Ritt expresses his determination to protect their homeland, emphasizing that if there is even the slightest opportunity, he will take it. The heroes decide to act only together, starting the operation tomorrow morning. Ritt adds that he will have no other choice and admits that his choice is limited by teams. She also says that she causes problems. The hero notices that the tree is fine but wonders why it looks like that. The hero wonders where he is. Ritt sees a girl in front of him. She asks the young man his name. He says his name is Ritt. The group of heroes introduces its members, Nabi, Mama, Mia, Adele, Nosy, Flower People, and Frau. The hero expresses his determination to do anything to protect their homeland. He admits that he does not want to leave the village of Torgen, feeling that he has already taken root there. She replies that she will only get a name when she gets older. The hero asks the girl's name. The hero understands the situation and says that he will come up with a name for her. He smiles, emphasizing that the world tree needs the most beautiful name. The girl gently touches the hero's head. The girl asks for help, showing a notebook. The hero exclaims Nabi's name in surprise, recognizing the girl. The heroine turns to Mr. Rit, informing him about the start of emergency activation. Rit receives the title, Benefactor of the World Tree, and the skill, Depth and Lightness of All Things. Mia asks Rita if everything is okay with him. Rit reassures the hero, stating that everything is fine and adds that 10 years have passed since the last event. He firmly declares that he will go to the monument. Manhwa asks to go together, and Nabi advises that it is dangerous there. The heroine states that Frau knows the mountains very well and will offer to guide them. The group of heroes activates the skill, Depth and Lightness of All Things, preparing to begin the task. Manhwa is ordered to cast a spell. The title, Benefactor of the World Tree, deactivated the special barrier, but the hero asks in surprise what kind of piece it is. The girl is surprised when she learns that we are talking about 100 boxes instead of baskets. Rith examines the notebook, which contains spells for releasing, closing, and other purposes. He notices that the book is structured and easy to read. The hero wonders which piece he missed. Rit notices a powerful whirlpool that creates a huge funnel, absorbing water and forming a deep hole. He also notes that the place where Nabi's body was found had the same architecture and says he knows it is not a dungeon. The heroes notice a majestic structure, the Temple of the Spirit. This is the Temple of Undine. Manhwa says the temple looks amazing. The title, Benefactor of the World Tree, deactivated the special barrier, opening the way for the heroes. The Temple of Undine opens to a group of heroes. The heroes see a passage down but notice that the entrance to the temple is deep and dark. Rit suggests going down on their own, but the others resolutely declare that they will go together. Manhwa enthusiastically says that their story will go down in history. Frau is determined that she will not let them down. Manhwa states that she needs to get 900 baskets of red berries. Rit is surprised and asks what this has to do with the monument. The hero orders the group to follow him and warns them not to go too far. The girl notices that the ground is shaking slightly, and Rit is grateful for the moonlight illuminating the path. Frau feels afraid because there is no one here, and Manhwa laughs at the day, to which Rit himself asks Manhwa if she is afraid. Rit points out the bright glow of the moss, saying that the deeper they go, the larger the variety becomes. The hero notices that it's just a crab, and Frau adds that Manhwa smells of sun and ink. He points to the altar located in the center of the room. Another hero says that there is a response in the center of the altar. The group of heroes agree that the altar was likely used for spirit worship. The heroes notice that they are being invited to go inside. Rit points out the accelerated growth of the plants and notices that the water level has not changed. The girl claims that she is a journalist and knows where to find information on how to get the required amount of berries. When asked how much water they took, the hero explains that the magical water is replenished even if you take a little. The hero decisively declares that he will have to dive. Rit wonders whether this is symbiosis or parasitism and expresses a desire for further research. The hero thanks Frau for allowing him to take some leaves to enhance the effect, and Frau agrees, confirming that everything will be fine. Adding glowing moss. Nabi confirms that the vital signs are normal and everything is ready. He explains that the sunbathing of the flower people inspired him to make this decision. He calls this device a herbal balloon. The hero claims that a small amount of light is enough to produce oxygen and they will be able to breathe underwater. Rit asks if the heroes believe him. The girl remarks that the master simply cannot come up with good names. Manhwa tells Frau that she is too soft. Rit asks her if she will really go with them. The heroine admits that she is afraid of water. The hero notices the girl's external signs, disheveled hair and bruises under her eyes. He decisively says that they will go immediately for information, adding that he himself will take care of the world tree. The hero suggests that Frau wait here, but she looks worried and is unsure whether she should stay alone. Rit explains that if the red flower withers, it will mean that they will not return. He asks her to stay in the village and write a letter to Adele. Rit declares that she is their backup. The heroine agrees to take on this important task. The hero prepares to set out on a journey. Frau asks why Manhwa doesn't go with them. The girl wishes good luck to the heroes. The hero uses the research skill. The group of heroes notices that the glowing moss has improved their visibility in the dark, even though they are in a cave and not a temple. Rit sees that Manhwa is fine. The hero asks where they should go next. Nabi reports that the mana in the water is creating interference, making movement difficult, and warns the others to be careful. The heroine says that the priority now is to protect Manhwa. Manhwa expresses surprise and asks how this happened. The hero notes that there are many underwater plants here and suggests that this may be related to the mana in the water. Rith is surprised that there are some plant species he doesn't know, and explains that the plant magic of this world is a mixture of water and earth magic. He admits that they are interesting to study. The hero expresses admiration for how much new he learns about the world, especially about algae, and declares that he will definitely study them. The group of heroes notices a sudden powerful magical pulse, indicating that someone or something is approaching them at high speed. Rit notices the pleasant feeling of the water and says that it is very beautiful. Frau again incorrectly called the hero Sir, apologizing for her lack of practice in human language. The flower people explain that they can share their thoughts directly. Manhwa feels if she is willing to take risks for the sake of her work. Frau thinks about traveling the world every day and wants to know how to gain the power to protect everyone. She also asks how to become like Rit. The hero notices that the view resembles the starry sky. He also wonders if there might be another key needed besides the spell. Rit asks how many days they have left, and the girl replies that they have 4 days left. Frau expresses a desire to go there again. The girl says that the sky she saw before is her favorite. The heroine suddenly hears footsteps and feels anxious, fearing that she will not be able to call for help. A terrifying creature appears with its mouth open, revealing its toothy maw. Nabi begins to analyze the situation. Rit warns the others that dangers surround them. Fishmen appear before the heroes. The hero exclaims in surprise that he sees fishmen. He wonders if they have been here all this time and notices that the fishmen look a bit like someone. The young man notes that since he arrived on the southern continent, he has constantly encountered something new and unusual. He asks Nabi what is going on, as he did not notice anything. Nabi says that everyone should hold tight to the herbal balloon for safety. The heroine admits that she was scared when someone spoke out of her mouth. Taking into account the time for transportation, the heroes realize that they have only 3 days left. The heroes notice that there are no signs of aggression around and ask if the creatures are crying or dancing. They notice new activity. Frau calls Rita, sitting on a horse. The heroes discuss an unusual creature that resembles a horse. Frau ends up riding the creature, causing surprise among the other heroes. Rit notices the creature's sparkling eyes and the barnacles on its hooves, pointing out unusual features. The search ends when it is discovered that it is a kelpie, a unique creature that combines the traits of a horse and a water spirit. Nabi asks Frau if she understands the master, and she answers in the affirmative. The heroes notice that Frau communicates with the creatures through sign language. Frau says she's in a bubble where she can breathe without leaves, and Rit asks where the air comes from. Frau remembers the herbal balloon that allows her to breathe underwater. The hero asks how the plants on Frau's head affect her brain activity and expresses a desire to conduct a study, noting that this is the second time today. Rit reasons that from what he has heard it is clear that Mia is innocent. He also notes that the situation is a scam. Rit asks what the creatures around them are saying. The heroine replies that the creatures are showing them the way and telling them to come here. The girl adds that the creatures are asking for help. The heroes discuss that long ago, when the world tree disappeared, the spirit of water fell asleep. They sealed the temple to protect Undine, the spirit of water. The hero thanks Frau for her excellent translation and notes that they are already very deep. He adds that without Kelpie and the bubbles they would not have been able to get to this place. The heroes notice that everything around them is huge and beautiful, assessing the scale of the surrounding architecture. The characters are in a huge hall with majestic architecture illuminated by soft light. Rit says there is no one in this place. Manhwa says they need to take notes while they're on land, and Rit asks about Frau. The hero notices that Nabi has lost control. Manhwa suggests that someone deliberately set a trap for Mia. The blessing of the world tree has been activated. Rit repeats faster. The hero and Frau stand with the fishman. Rit notes that the creature has translucent blue skin and ears shaped like fish fins. It is also noted that its dress sways as if it were made of water. He points to an object that is Undine, the spirit of water. The hero speaks of Undine's awakening. The heroine notices that the creatures are doing a Japanese bow and says that they are very happy. The hero watches in surprise as the girl appears before him. Undine calls the creatures arrogant children of men and claims that they are stupid seeds that will never sprout. She accuses the heroes of killing their sacred tree and disturbing her sweet sleep. The hero expresses that something similar happened in Gultland and that he cannot tolerate such things and mentions it. The group of heroes notice that she is furious. Rit calls Undine, indicating to her the place of action. The hero notices that magic has created a water cutter that can deal him a fatal blow. Rit hadn't felt this way for a long time. Undine accuses the hero of trying to defame the sacred secrets of the world and expresses dissatisfaction. Rin realizes that his words anger the woman. He is sure that he knows how to solve the situation, and Nabi asks the master to concentrate. Frau asks Mr. Rita to open the door, while Manhwa declares that if she is going to die, then let it be in a state of alcoholic intoxication. The girl proudly explains that the wine was made from berries that the entire village had collected, despite the lack of water and the dry soil. The hero uses the skill of a middle manager by listening carefully to the customers' complaints and asking them to tell their story. The heroes are sitting at a table on which there are many dishes with food. The old man points to a document with an order for 100 boxes and that one box equals 10 baskets. The girl agrees, adding that such situations happen everywhere. She also notes that thanks to such cases, she met Mr. Rita and Mia, for which she is happy. The water spirit, Undine, expresses anger and frustration, stating that her anger will not subside even if she sleeps for so long. She accuses the heroes of being responsible for her falling asleep. The hero looks worried and says that he is very sorry about what happened. Manhwa also notices that Rin and Undine are chatting non-stop. Frau asks if she did everything right, and Rit thanks her for saving her. While Rit was entertaining Undine, Frau brought a new batch of wine and snacks from the village. Undine admires the amazing taste of the wine. Rit is happy that they managed to please the spirit of water. The young man suggests enjoying dishes prepared in their village, highlighting local traditions. Undine says it reminded her of the past. She talks about the old days when the world was full of magic and they would gather together to share stories over a cup of wine. Undine notes that the creatures they interacted with had no breaks and completely absorbed natural mana and then suddenly disappeared. The heroine sadly tells that when the world tree dried up, the world lost its colors. The hero notices that they act the same way as bad guys, just like businessmen do. Rit wondered if people were to blame for their own problems. The hero notices that, in the end, all worlds are the same. Undine confirms that there is currently virtually no natural mana to cast spells. She admits that Rit was able to block her attack despite the temple's lack of mana. The hero explains that modern magic does not require natural mana. It is enough to use the mana stored in the body. Undine says that offerings and help from a mighty warrior is a classic method used by humans. She asks what is wanted from her. The heroine asks why she was woken up. Rit says they need water and while she sleeps, the drought will continue. Undine refuses to help, stating that she has no reason to help those who destroyed the world. Frau tells Undine that Mr. Rit saved them from the flower people. Rit suggests finding the weaknesses of the opponents. She says that thanks to their efforts, they now have delicious products. The girl explains that for spirits like Undine, natural mana is a vital element, just like air is for humans. The heroine points out that without natural magic they are doomed to extinction, despite being aware of this fact. Undine accuses humans of killing the world tree. She says that after everything the people have done, she should listen to their request. Undine considers this a mockery. Undine accuses the heroes of rebuilding the world for their own desires, calling them vile monsters. The hero admits that he understands everything and agrees that what happened was wrong, adding that this is why he left the empire. Frau turns to Undine, claiming that everything is not as she thinks and that Mr. Rit is Mr. Rit. Undine says that sooner or later people will kill them, and if they want to hate someone, then it is better to hate people. Rit claims that he is driven only by ambition. Manhwa asks permission to go home, stating that she urgently needs to return. He admits that he is a vile monster. Undine warns that one more word and she will cut off the head of her interlocutor. The hero is bound by tentacles and tries to say something. He wanted to do research into magic and plants, and explains that he was planning to live alone. The hero admits that his desires changed when he found himself on the southern continent. He replies that their desires coincide with Undine's. Rit asks how about joining forces. The hero suggests that if Undine helps with water, he can return the place to its former beauty. Undine wonders what a small creature like him can do. She claims that the world tree no longer exists. Rit says that the world tree is in their village and life is blooming around it. The heroine states that she can handle the situation on her own and that she is a journalist. She expresses surprise upon learning that the world tree is in the hands of humans and states that she does not believe it. The hero himself does not fully understand the situation. Nabi offers to share the details with her. Rit notices that the water is warm. The girl asks the hero's name, and he replies that his name is Rit Rickart. Undine says she will share her power only once. The heroes thank her for her help. The hero was surprised that the power would only last for 100 years. Undine explains that for her 100 years is a moment, but for people it is several generations. Manhwa suggests bringing down a torrent of water, but Undine points out that nothing can be done right now. The hero asks if the dry land is filled with water, will trees begin to grow, but they will be flooded. Undine explains that plant roots loosen the soil, making it easier for water to be absorbed. The girl holds some object, and Rit says that if the situation becomes dangerous, she will throw it at him. She says it's better to introduce changes gradually, so the environment can adapt, and in 100 years the place will come back to life. Rit states that they must act now, as he made a promise. Undine admits to lacking natural mana. The hero has an idea and he needs to discuss it with everyone. Manhwa is adamant that they cannot grow trees on the entire mountain at once, but they must do it. Mia says that everything will work out and expresses confidence that Mr. Rit will help them again. Manhwa says that she believes in him as always, and today is an important day for her wine. The hero calls Undine, asking her to wake up. Undine adds that she still doesn't feel natural mana and notices that the place has changed. The hero asks the creature for forgiveness and says that they will soon be able to swim. The heroine notes that if the world tree is reborn, the world can be restored, suggesting to simply wait. The hero expresses satisfaction, saying that he always knew she was an excellent reporter. Undine agrees to help one day in gratitude for the wine and suggests starting. Rit thanks her and states that this is enough for him. The hero resolutely promises to fulfill his promise. Undine says she doesn't expect this. Rain magic is activated. The hero asks Nabi for help, and she confirms that she understood his request. Accelerated growth is shown by showing rapid development of plants. Although the effect was meager, as expected, the result was that only a couple of trees grew. The hero notices that someone has come and is surprised by what is happening. He points out that seedlings are beginning to sprout all over the mountain. Manhwa suggests lowering the price the next day. The merchant insists that he will not change his mind. The girl asks how the hero was able to do this. Rit explains that he used air magic, but his powers are not enough for everything. He says he channels the power to accelerate their growth so that they control the trees and they don't get too big. The girl asks how the flower people can use magic. The hero notices that the creatures did not understand their words. As expected, flower people get along well with plants. He says they actually communicate with the creatures. Rit explains that Mama's research helped select the best seeds for the mountain, and Mia purchased those seeds. Nusi carried the seeds and gave the signal, showing the teamwork of the village of Torgen for a common goal. The heroine happily watches as the plants begin to grow. The hero expresses gratitude, stating that he could not have done it alone. The girl emphasizes that without the world tree and its magic, this is impossible. The heroine resolutely declares that she will definitely catch the bad guys by the tail, and there are only 3 days left. Undine notices the pleasant aroma of greenery and says that the breeze is very pleasant. She states that they are not finished yet and turns to Riito Ricart who, emphasizing, says that this is just the beginning. The title, Benefactor of the World Tree, is activated. The hero asks Undine to lend him her power. He states that he has made his choice. She understands the situation and agrees to help. A major magical reaction. Undine undergoes a transformation. The hero declares that the preparation is complete and they are ready to see the result of their actions. Water that carries the will of the world tree. A powerful explosive movement of water occurs. The result is a picturesque forest with trees. Manhwa reads information about a man named Pyrel who met with Mia. Pyrel is mentioned as a big shot in the Cup Guild. The heroine happily declares that everything worked out. Frau thanks Undine for her help. Rit says that's enough, but she demands that the hero shut up, and she also claims that she knows more about this land than anyone else. The Call of the World Tree, where heroes rejoice in the river. The heroine remembers the old days. Pharaoh thanks to thank Mr. Rita. The hero calls on Frau to hold his hand. Rit says his body moved on its own, apologizing for what happened. He happily declares that their plan worked, thanks to their combined efforts. Frau says that Rit is not just Rit, to which he thinks that it is teamwork. Manhwa realizes that this means 1,000 baskets, 10 times the norm. She explains that there is a war going on between factions within the Winged Handle Guild. She also mentions that Pyrel is the leader of the faction that advocates materialism. The heroine admires the hero, calling him Mr. Rit, and says that he saved them. The hero denies. He admits that he always found people disgusting. Rit explains that he became a hero to be different from others. The hero only recently noticed his own mistakes and realizes that he missed many details. He realizes that he should have said and done much more. The hero admits that he threw away everything he had and decided to live alone, wanting to stay among the beautiful plants. He considers this stupid, selfish, and disgusting. Rit says he is the most ordinary and despicable person. Frau says she finds it hard to understand him, but she thinks the hero is a good man. The hero remembers the moment when the girl took his hand, and it helped him understand himself better. He finally accepts himself for who he is, just Rit. The man asks if Manhwa is tired of the crazy stories. The girl objects to the accusations that the story is crazy, stating that she is not tired of such stories. Rit adds that she doesn't want to be called master, and says that he wants them to be equal. The girl apologizes for interrupting their conversation, but she notices a waterfall in front of them. Rit asks why Frau didn't tell him earlier, but she apologizes, saying she didn't want to interrupt him. The hero explains that they can't control the raft, so they have to jump. The fishmen help the heroes cope. The heroine notices that Mr. Rit looks strange. Rit comments that the flower pillow is a good idea. The hero asks Frau if everything is okay with her. Frau thanks Rita for becoming her friend. Rit agrees, confirming that they are friends. He expresses his gratitude to Frau for her help. Manhwa asks the man if he knows anything about the woman. Joe says that Pyrel has too much security. The heroine calls Rita and reminds that they are now approaching the village and now is not the time for games. The hero happily declares that everything went according to plan, but the girls notice something strange with the world tree. The girl notices that the tree has grown by a whole meter. The heroine turns to Rita and later to her father. Joe says that Pyrel goes to bars 5 days a week. There is a good establishment in the neighboring town. Manhwa notices that Pyrel is nearby. Pyrel from the Cup Guild is also present at the meeting. The heroine notices that the guy next to him is definitely from the Winemakers Guild. The girl introduces herself as Remy and asks the girl if this is her first time here. The heroine confirms that this is indeed Remy's first time here, adding that she is also so fluffy. She apologizes for the misunderstanding, and the old man says that it is too late to cancel the order now. Manhwa wonders why those visitors are always so noisy. Remy notices that these visitors used to be sullen. The heroine is surprised to hear the word gloomy, and Remy points to a man from the Winemakers Guild. Remy also notices that wine with cats on the label has become popular lately. Manhwa suggests that perhaps customers want to get rid of a competitor since Mia was deceived about her order. Another heroine reminds them not to talk about clients. Mia says it's probably because they're both beastmen. The heroine notices that there are many beastmen here. The old man replies that he will leave soon. Manhwa asks what the people in the bar are talking about. The heroine remembers that Pyrel stayed at this inn. She also wonders why he went to the neighboring city if the inn specializes in beastmen. Manhwa decides to collect evidence against Pyrel and intends to blackmail him. 6 years ago, the hero expresses irritation over the difficulties of transporting cargo from the imperial capital. The old man states that they have already prepared everything necessary for the transportation of the goods, and warns that if the girl cannot provide what is required, this may lead to the loss of their trust. The hero is surprised that Mia leaves in the middle of the workday, and she is happy to learn that Manhwa is alive. Mia proudly shows off her special donuts and offers them to be tasted. The heroine notices his excellent appetite and suggests going to the hospital together. Mia happily announces that she has finally opened her stall. Mia says that this is a step towards her dream, and then asks the girl if she has a dream. Manhwa admits that she simply ran away when the situation became too difficult. Mia admires the heroine, calling her magnificent. The heroine says that one cannot stop there because the escape is only the beginning. She notes that she managed to escape, and that is great. Manhwa is surprised to hear that she is great, but Mia confirms it, adding that she is really cool. Mia states that she wants to become very rich. The heroine asks what she will do when she becomes rich. He threatens that the future of the Heroes Guild may be very uncertain. Manhwa orders someone to stop and put back what was taken. The girl is surprised how the heroine realized that the man had run away. Manhwa also notes that she saw the man in the newspaper and adds, Mia suggests that Manhwa become a journalist. She notes that this is now the heroine's new dream. The heroine receives praise for her character and talent as a journalist. The hero notices that the man left the hotel. The old man notices that he is late. The hero thanks him for finding the time to visit them. The girl whispers that the animal cats are like liquid. The man says that everything is quiet in the south. The old man suggests that they get down to business right away, as he is tired. They have received high-quality goods to buy. He reports that the elegant beast girls have arrived directly from the capital of the empire. The heroine realizes the gravity of the situation, stating that the trade of creatures is strictly prohibited on the southern continent. She decides to publish this information, calling the trader a devil. The old man says he hopes to receive the goods within 10 days. She also notes that she was drunk once and spilled the water, adding that it was not because of her. Pirel wonders why the hero has so many customers. The hero confirms that such goods are very popular in the empire. He asks about the red berries, and another character notes that they were indeed cornered, as he said earlier. The old man says that the Winemakers Guild is helping him. He reminds the man that this is not an empire where they can deal with everyone in a barbaric manner. The merchant thanks the old man for his help. They put a lot of effort into destroying the supplier of the red berries. The hero wonders who organized this situation, assuming that it was a person from the imperial capital. Manhwa also expresses surprise as to why Mia is their target, with the heroine noting that the supply of red berries has been reduced due to crop failure and bad weather. Someone notices Manhwa and asks what she is doing there. Manhwa was frightened when she saw a man with a knife. The man thinks it is a rat, but the merchant denies that it is not a rat, but an insect. The heroine says that she almost died. Another character expresses irritation and says that they don't like insects. He asks how much time is left until the deadline, and the girl says that there are only 6 days left. The heroine decides that the main thing now is to escape. Mama says he won't open the door, but it fits the key. The girl tries to open the door with her head and rolls out. The man notices with surprise that the door should only open inwards. Pirel realizes that the girl is from the Information Guild, and they decide to act quickly to catch her. The merchant says they must leave and refuses to help with the village's problems. She also mentions that he buys beastmen from the Empire and sells them on the southern continent. The heroine expresses surprise, not understanding the purpose of a man who would team up with the Emperor to deal with the red berries. The girl notices that she is at the limit of her strength. The hero declares that she will not run away again. Manhwa calls for the use of her special